Dear Master, in times like these, each of us are undeserving servants for all of the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. In this season of giving and thanksgiving, we thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for this opportunity to be called servants, to serve this, our community, our citizens, our leaders. We pray that as we deliberate their requests, that common sense and knowledge and wisdom come before us as we vote. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, greetings again to everyone. We genuinely appreciate y'all being here and participating in this process, which can sometimes feel lengthy, and hopefully it will go smoothly today. For public hearing agenda items, if you wish to make public comments on an application, we have MPC comment slips at the speaker's stand next to the podium. For future notification purposes, it's very important that you fill out a slip and drop it in the box when you come forward to speak. Please state your full name and a mailing address and zip code before addressing the board. We will call each case on the agenda in order, and we'll hear first from the applicant and then those wishing to speak in favor of that application. 10 minutes will be allotted for the principal spokesperson and 3 minutes for each additional speaker. And your time will be on the corner of the screens up here. While you're speaking, you can check and see how much time you have left. And then we will hear from those who wish to speak against an application. Again, 10 minutes are allotted for the principal spokesperson in opposition and 3 minutes for each person thereafter. One representative of the application can then return and speak in rebuttal if desired. After hearing comments on each case, the board will then immediately deliberate and vote on that case before moving on to the next case on our agenda. Please note that when the board is deliberating, members of the public are not permitted to comment. Any member of the public may request a copy of the board's decisions on a particular case by contacting our office at 318-673-6480 after 1 p.m. tomorrow, or by accessing our website at shreveportcatompc.com. For consent agenda items and other items not requiring a public hearing, public comments can be made upon request by filling out an MPC comment slip. If comments are requested for a specific agenda item, the chair will offer an opportunity for those comments prior to the commission taking action on that item. All of the MPC board's zoning recommendations are submitted to either the city council or the parish commission for a final decision. We are just a recommending body for those zoning decisions, depending on the location of the property in question. Please note that it's your responsibility to contact the appropriate governing body about their procedures as related to the matter that you're concerned with. Copies of this document and the phone numbers to contact the governing bodies are available on the table next to the podium and in the entryway to this room. As a courtesy, please remember to silence your cell phones during our meeting today, and the commission values your testimony, and we appreciate your compliance with these guidelines, and we appreciate your patience as we muddle through this process. All right. First of all, do I have a motion regarding our minutes from the November 6th meeting?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Andrews, second by Ms. Smith, I believe. All right, and our minutes from last meeting are approved. Thank you. And it looks like we have just one consent agenda item today. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Andrews to approve, a second by Ms. Smith. Call for the vote. All right, and our consent agenda item has been approved. Okay, Our first item on our public hearing docket, case number 19302, CAC closure and abandonment. The applicant is LifeShare Blood Center. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Desi Sprouls. My business address is 920 Piermont, Suite 520, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71106. I'm here today to represent LifeShare Blood Center. Over the past several years, LifeShare Blood Center has been acquiring properties in the Linwood Park subdivision in order to expand the LifeShare Blood Center project and buildings that are there. Several years ago, after they had acquired most of the property, they came before this board with a request to close and abandon all of the portion of Sugarleaf Trail that's from the portion that's before you today out to Linwood Avenue. So as I stand here today, there is no longer public access, from Linbrook subdivision out to Linwood Avenue. That access has already been closed and abandoned by previous actions. All we're trying to do today is, when that closure and abandonment occurred, there were 4 properties on the north side of Sugarleaf Trail that LifeShare had not yet been able to acquire. Over the past year, LifeShare was able to acquire those properties so that LifeShare now owns all of the properties on both sides of Sugarleaf Trail all the way out to Linwood Avenue. So the purpose of the application today is just to close and abandon that remaining portion of Sugarleaf Trail that fronted the 4 properties that they've been able to acquire, so that they now can have one continuous tract of land that I believe is going to be before you at next month's hearing for a rezoning application. But I know there are some people here that are probably opposed to the closure, but the facts are the street's already been closed. And all we're doing today is asking for the closure of the small remaining portion that did not get closed by the action that occurred a couple of years ago. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sprouls, and it's good to see you back here.
Madam Chair,
Does anyone have any questions, Mr. Clark?
just for clarity's sake, Mr. Sprouls, from what I'm hearing from you, the portion before the application for the day is already closed and abandoned, and the property is owned by LifeShare.
That's correct.
And therefore, that street no longer exists because half of the street would have gone to the individual property owners, but in his case, is LifeShare.
Yes, that's correct.
So what LifeShare is asking for today is to close and abandon the rest of the street, because you could not use the street anyway, as is.
Yes, that's correct.
And once they close and abandon the street, the rest of the street, they can build on that land that they have now became owners of.
Yes, that's correct.
I just wanted to have a clear understanding.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Sprouls? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor?
L. Havard Scott III, 1049 Southfield Road, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71106. I am the attorney for LifeShare Blood Center. And Mr. Clark, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I do think there are some people here that think they still have access down Sugarleaf, and maybe you're not aware because LifeShare hasn't physically closed the street or barricaded it, that there may be some people that still think they can get in and out that way, and that this closing the rest of the street affects them when it doesn't. And I'm just here to answer any questions if y'all have any.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Scott?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, thank you. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? In favor? All right, seeing none, anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? And the first speaker will have 10 minutes, and all subsequent speakers will have 3.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm James Green. My address is 4101 Evers Drive, and that is a portion of my district. And I've talked to the citizens, and they were unaware. They said they had heard about the street was going to be closed some time ago. But unbeknownst to them, the street, whatever he has just explained to Mr. Clark, was closed, and they didn't know. They didn't have any say in that. But at this particular time, I've had overwhelming calls begging that that portion not be closed, and I would ask that, with LifeShare being a good neighbor to the neighborhood, that they would not bring this burden upon them. But we have some citizens here from my district that will explain to you their side of the story. Thank you.
Okay, just one moment, Mr. Green, hang on. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Green? Mr. Remedies?
I have a question. Mr. Clark, if LifeShare wanted, because the other part of the road is already abandoned, if LifeShare wanted to, at this point, put a barricade up and remove access to the street, could they do that right now?
We're looking up the previous case, but if that's the case, that property is owned by LifeShare and it's no longer a public street. So they could put up a barricade.
Okay, so this is kind of a formality they're going through that's...
Now they're trying to close the entire street in order for them to expand their development. But they already own a portion of the street,
Okay.
all the way from that area all the way out to Linwood. That's why I asked that question, because I was not aware that they already owned a major portion of the street, and they were just asking for the remainder of the street to be abandoned.
Right, and what they were saying is that they were unaware that when whatever took place, nobody circulated anything
Yeah, they
for
weren't.
them to make them aware so that they could protest against it or for it.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's what I think he said Mr. G was
Right.
looking up, was the previous case.
Right.
But
Thank you.
Mr. Remedies, in any case, that closure and abandonment would have come before this board and been forwarded on to the city council. So it would have happened officially.
Yeah. so
We're
it's-
looking it up just for record purposes, but
Okay.
we
All right.
believe that action has already
All right, no more
taken
questions.
place.
Thank you. Ms. Smith? did
Yeah,
you-
my question was the same as Norma.
Okay.
Because I felt just like the citizens, because to me, they were unaware of it, and now you're finna look it up.
Yes, ma'am.
Find it out.
Just for the sake of the citizens, we want to be able to share with them when this action
Yeah,
actually
because
occurred.
When I read it, I was alarmed too, because I'm very familiar with Linwood when I read it.
And it may take us a little while, Madam Chair, so if the board is interested, you may want to come back to this one.
Madam Chair,
Okay, Mr. Andrews?
I'd like to move that we delay.
You can listen to
this
the
particular issue until we get
opposition.
information from upstairs. That's been the form of the motion.
All right, so I have a
second
motion
that
to,
motion.
all right, I have a motion to delay this hearing until we receive
This
information.
particular case.
Okay, this case, and a second by Ms. Smith.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just, that is, assuming that we'll hear it today, right?
Oh,
Just
of
so-
course.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. Okay, so everybody didn't come down for
They're already
nothing.
upstairs looking for Mr. Remedies.
Very good, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the motion to delay this case temporarily on our docket today, and a second by Ms. Smith. Any other
We may be able to
deliberation?
do something immediately. Here comes Mr. Talton from
All right,
the
so we'll,
engineering office.
Delay the delay.
we're deliberating, we're deliberating.
Would y'all, I shared with y'all my slight problem. Would y'all allow out of order Mr. Talton to come and provide you with this information?
Yeah.
He's trying to let me read and I can't see anything.
What's that?
Cataract surgery.
Oh, thank
But I
you.
mean, is that relevant?
My name is William Talton. I represent the Office of the City Engineer, 505 Travis Street, Suite 300, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71101. The LifeShare Blood Centers has been trying to be essentially like a campus area in this and redevelop this area. They own all the properties that are in this little corner except those that directly face Lynbrook Boulevard and Melanie. And if I can put that on there, that will help. The portions that were highlighted went before this board in July of 2016 and were closed by the city council subsequently to that. So now they're just trying to close that portion of Sugarleaf from there out to Melanie Drive. Ponderosa was already closed, plus everything to the east of what you're looking at today was already closed by the city council.
And would you share with the board that if the property owner is so inclined, they could barricade off the street immediately?
Absolutely. The property that is highlighted on this plat has already been assessed to the ownership of LifeShare Blood Centers. So yes, they could put a barricade on it at Linwood or to the east there.
But we never notified.
You'll get your turn in just a second.
All right, so is that the end of your statement for now? Is there any questions for Mr. Charlton? Any questions? Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Okay. You want to keep that?
Sure.
Okay.
So we don't need to, do we need to resume with the motion to delay?
You can just go forward,
Okay.
Madam Chairman.
All right, so we will continue with our speakers in opposition to this application. And each speaker will have 3 minutes.
Did Mr. Andrews just rescind his motion?
That's what I just kind of tried to ask.
Yeah.
I think that motion being rescinded to delay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello,
All right, welcome.
I'm Angela Washington. I'm at 8909 Melanie Lane, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71106. I'm here to speak on behalf of my neighbors, myself and my neighbors. I've been in this neighborhood for 25 and a half years, and other neighbors even longer. Until today, I did not know about the acquisition of, that they had already ownership of a street. I thought the streets belonged to the city anyway. So, and we had to be notified of something like that. But the reason why we don't want that street closed is because
And can you specify what street you're talking about and exactly where you're?
Sugarleaf Trail, the 400 and 500 block of Sugarleaf Trail.
Between Sugarleaf and Melanie?
Yes. Melanie, Sugarleaf dead ends into Melanie Lane. And that's my street, and that's the only route I'll take. That's been my route for over 25, like I said, over 25 years. It's just where most of us go because we live in the 8900 block where it's dead ends, and that dead ends is the first street we come to. It's right there at Sugarleaf Trail. We make that right, and we go on out to Linwood. Okay, and I wanted to explain reasons why we don't want that closed.
That's the second portion.
I'm sorry, ma'am, we're trying to clarify exactly which part of Sugarleaf you're opposing the closure of.
The part to Linwood, like I said, I wasn't aware that this part, that they had already closed it. And now they're saying they're trying to close this.
I think we're gonna need some more explanation on which part of Sugarleaf has actually already been closed.
They're saying the part from Linwood all the way to Ponderosa. They're saying that they have already acquired that.
And that the city council has already,
That's what they're saying.
That is
so
correct.
that's not
But
before
we don't,
us.
huh?
That's just
What
not-
happened previously was there was no notification requirements for closure and abandonments. So no property owner would have gotten any notification of the proposed closure and abandonment. We're trying to rectify that situation today to add that as a amendment.
One of our amendments?
Yes.
Mhm.
But that's why the citizens were not aware of what happened, but it went through the legal procedure. It was done proper and upright. It was presented to the Metropolitan Planning Commission in 2016. It was recommended for closure and abandonment, and the city council closed it.
Okay, so
at their
I
meeting.
think,
So they
Ms.
affected
Washington, that portion of Sugarleaf is not before our board today. We don't have any authority over that today.
Okay.
I unfortunately regret that we don't.
Okay,
but-
well, I'm gonna speak to try to keep that, well, if we don't have that part, we need the whole street. So, I'm gonna speak on part of this street, this public part of the street today, and see what we have to do to go forward. But we have many elderly people on our streets. And we need that EMS, we need that open, we need that access. The access matters. And we live in a flood zone. We don't know how that's gonna affect, them closing that street. We don't know how that's gonna affect us. Our flood insurance goes up every year, and we're not even having anything done. And if they close that and we flood, we're just, because it's going back toward that street now.
Okay,
And also, there are more sex offenders on the streets that they're trying to reroute us to. There are more sex offenders on those streets than any streets in the whole neighborhood. On Janet Lane and Lindbergh Boulevard, where they're trying to force us to go to that route too, we don't want to do that. And our trash trucks would have to bag up 2 blocks, bag in or out 2 blocks in order to, if the street is closed. And our UPS and FedEx people will have the same issues. And the biggest fact of the matter here is, that's right there at Melanie and Sugarleaf Trail, that's our children's bus stop. That's where the bus picks them up. Matter of fact, I was up this morning and watched them get on that bus there and go, so we are able to see them get on and off the bus. With all the predators in the neighborhood, you need that access. This is most crucial this day and time when all these children are being abducted. And I don't think LifeShare really cares anything about our neighborhood. They say they're good neighbors to us, but doing this to us, blocking our streets, that's not a good neighbor.
all right, thank
They
you.
don't care about my time is up.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Washington. I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Washington? I would like clarification of exactly what street closure is before our board today. Again, I know this has already been over 3 times. I just want clarification for the community on what is before us today.
The only thing I can share again, Madam Chair, is that from Linwood to the point that's before you today has been closed and abandoned. It is no longer a city street.
So our vote today is
Your-
regarding what exactly?
That's right here.
I know, I'm just
Your
trying to get on
vote
record.
today is to continue the process and abandon the entire street
Between,
between Melanie Lane and Linwood.
all the way to Linwood?
You already have abandoned portions of
Right.
Sugarleaf Trail. Now, the application before you today is to close and abandon the rest of the street. It's
Between Melanie and Ponderosa?
You're not showing Ponderosa. but
Yeah,
would you like
that's
us to
it.
put it on the screen?
Yes.
Yes, I'm looking at a sheet, my screen is showing it.
And that's the problem that the citizens are confronted with. The street is gone, over half is gone, that they've just been possibly using.
Mr. Clark, you're obviously familiar with the application, but on the Google Street View, they're showing about 4 homes that are directly behind the LifeShare Blood Center. Are those homes now abandoned?
And that, I don't know, LifeShare would have to.
Okay. We'll get them in a rebuttal. They can come back up and we can ask that.
But I just wanted to point out with you, if you look at the plat up on the screen, all of the area from Linwood to that point is abandoned and belongs to the property owners, which I would assume is
Anything
LifeShare.
red?
But they clearly left it open and subject to use.
They could have, they were, in my understanding, they will be coming before you next month with a development plan for what they're planning on doing. They possibly have just left it open up until this point.
What I'm looking at here on the, as Mr. Ramirez pointed out, on the Google map, unless I'm in the wrong place, it's showing tons of houses here, and my concern would be whether or not these people have access to get out of their houses. I mean, am I missing something?
I think they bought all that.
All these houses have been bought by LifeShare?
And LifeShare is the only one that can answer those questions.
Okay, I'll make a motion that if we don't have any more questions for her, that we bring back someone from LifeShare, a representative from LifeShare, to get some of these questions answered before we hear from the
Yes,
other
sir.
citizens, just so we're clear with what we're dealing with, and
Okay.
your points made effectively. Correct.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Remedies to suspend the rules and invite a representative of the applicant.
Second that motion.
A second by Mrs. Smith. Can I call for the vote? You can just show of hands. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right.
Okay, Mr. Joseph, the houses on
And again, if you
Sugar
could just-
Leaf
if you could just
and
state your
on
name for the record. Just state your name again.
L. Havard Scott III,
Okay.
1049 Southfield
Thank
Road,
you.
Shreveport, 71106, attorney for LifeShare. All of the houses on Sugar Leaf and Ponderosa are gone. LifeShare bought them. LifeShare's got over $2.5 million invested in buying the houses on those two streets, and they're gone.
Okay, can you point to those, if you would mind, on the overhead projector? If you, over here where, yeah.
Got it. Got it.
All of these houses are gone. All of these houses are gone. These houses are gone. And those houses are gone.
All right, so
That clears it up, because it's a 2014 picture we're looking at, but it looked like nice homes that you typically would not. Okay.
So then we're talking, Mr. Scott, about people having access from their homes, that front here. Yeah.
Right, and those houses have access out Lynbrook Avenue.
Okay.
Okay, and look, I can, since I've been involved with it, part of the reason LifeShare hadn't barricaded the street is because there was an old city water main that was leaking water and flooding this whole area, and we've spent tens of thousands of dollars with Fitzgerald Plumbing and have finally located the water problem. It is an old city water main, and the city's aware of it, and that's why the city wants a servitude to be able to access any water mains in the area. But I think LifeShare, Mr. Clark is correct, LifeShare owns this property that's shaded on this and can close it off now, and in fact, I have told them they need to.
Okay.
So the only reason that there was a little section of Sugar Leaf Trail that wasn't abandoned by the city council is because there were still 4 homes there at that time. LifeShare's now acquired those 4 homes and they're torn down. They're gone.
Okay,
So both sides of Sugar Leaf, both sides of Ponderosa, Ponderosa here, Sugar Leaf here. The only houses that are left front on Melanie and on Lynbrook Boulevard.
okay.
So nobody's going to be, I mean, is it going to take you 30 seconds extra to get to Linwood if you live down here at the end of Melanie? Maybe, but you can't do it now. So this is just cleanup. That's-
Okay, and if you could just clarify one more time, point on the overhead projector, the section of Sugar Leaf that is before us today. And just, you can, I think it's showing, it's over here.
Now I'm going to show you on,
Oh,
I'm going
okay.
to show you on what went out, the notice.
Okay.
This section right here, that's all that's at issue.
Okay, so no access to Linwood on that section?
No,
Okay.
that's already been closed.
Correct, all right. Just trying
So
to
the
get
only thing
record
that's
clear.
before y'all today is the part of Sugar Leaf that those 4 houses front on that LifeShare didn't acquire
Originally.
when it came before the city council previously, but have now acquired.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Scott?
And I'll point out that we have a favorable staff report in this case. I think all of these issues have been already addressed.
Right, I think there's just some factual clarification for the record. We're trying to get clear. And-
I think in the staff report didn't refer to the previous closure, so that
Right.
may have avoided all of this if it had, and we
Okay.
wouldn't have needed to. But I'm glad that Mr. Clark called for that file, because now I have it.
Yes, and we appreciate your patience with us today. Is there
no
any
problem.
other questions for Mr. Scott? Did you have-
No, I just wanted to make a comment. We were just because we get the agenda and we look at it, but you guys have been involved in this, and the citizens live in the neighborhood, so they know every detail about it. When we convene, we have to kind of catch up sometimes. So we just want to be sure that when we make a decision, it's with all of the information and we fully understand exactly what. So we were just trying to clarify that no one would be provided, or we wouldn't take anybody's accessibility from their road. But it sounds like that the only reason why Sugarleaf has been open is because LifeShare just hasn't closed it yet. So
That's
they can
correct.
close it tomorrow morning.
It probably is a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
No more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Remedios. Is that it?
I think that's it. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Scott.
Sure.
Motion to go back into
Now, if there's a
regular
Thank
session.
you.
Motion to
And I
return.
appreciate y'all doing your
Second.
job and making sure that you know all the answers to these questions.
Thank you. Now, I have a motion to return to our agenda by Mr. Remedies and a second by Ms. DeMarteau. Show of hands. Approved. All right, returning to our regular agenda. If there's anyone here to speak in opposition to the application before our board today regarding that section of Sugarleaf, please come forward. You will have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Tina White. My address is 8910 Melanie Lane. I object closing Sugarleaf Trail because we have no other access if something happened on the 8800 block of Melanie, which last year we had a little girl got shot, and the whole block was locked off for hours. If we have an emergency, no one can get to us and we can't get out. A couple of months ago, a tree fell across the street. We were locked in. We would be locked in for hours. We have elderly people, we have sick people that are on the 8900 block that we would not have access to get out. We would be trapped.
Can you please point on the overhead about where you would be locked in, just for clarification?
Okay. Where's Melanie? Okay, Melanie, we're at the very end of Melanie.
In the 89.
In the 8900 block. We cannot go out except through Sugarleaf Trail or Melanie Lane. The accident occurred prior to getting to Sugarleaf Trail, which would lock us in. We could not get access to get out. If someone had an accident on Linwood, we still don't have on Linbrook. If someone would have an accident right there on Melanie Lane, we would be trapped. And it's very unfair as citizens, taxpayers, to not have access to get out of our area. Would either of you like to be trapped in? And I think it's very unfair that we had no notification that they were considering in 2016 to close that area. I think that's very unfair to us as citizens. And homeowners and taxpayers and all of that.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. White?
We continue to look for information back to 2016, just to provide the citizens with updated information on what has transpired. The reality of the matter is, this street has been closed and the right-of-way has been abandoned. Up until the point that's before you today.
Yes.
Okay, Mr.
We will
Remedies.
provide as much information as we can.
Ms. White?
That's not helpful to us.
Ms. White?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify. We can only make a decision on what's the application before us today. So the only thing that they are requesting is that the rear portion of the street be abandoned and closed. Sounds as if they intend to close the front portion, so the access to Linwood would be, that's not gonna be an option moving forward anyway, because that's already done.
So we're gonna be locked in there regardless.
But that's not before us today. The only thing we can make a decision on is should we close the very end of the street? And the reason why it wasn't closed before is because there were houses there that they have purchased. So even if it's unfortunate for the neighbors that you weren't notified, we're not legislators. That's the city council that makes the laws which they have to do. And we hate that you're put into a bad situation. I just want to be clear that we're not trying to be unfair, but we can only make a decision on should we or should we not close the end of the street. And that's the only, because if we make a decision based on if you have access to Linwood where you really don't have it now, just for the fact they've not closed it yet.
So is it unfair that we were not notified?
Yes, ma'am, but that's not we're not legislators. The city council makes the laws and the ordinances for the city. I'm trying to explain so you understand this. We're not just taking away your access. All we're doing is deciding whether the end of the road should be closed or should be abandoned and closed, right? Okay. So the front of it's going to be closed regardless. So the access to Linwood will be taken away regardless of what we do today. So I just wanted you to understand that that's the only decision that we can make here.
And I would just,
Yes, Ms. Smith?
I would just like to say what Ron is saying too, because I talked with Mr. Clark and I did tell him, I said, this is 2016. And to me, 2016 was very unfair to not notify the citizens about the abandoned.
We just noticed that they just started tearing houses down.
He said that they did not have to notify you all in 2000. Am I correct?
What we have found, this is why we've been looking for the information. It appears that there was a 300-foot radius of notification that all of the residents along, is that Sugar Leaf? That was all the residents along Pierce Sugar Leaf and Melody Lane were notified of the close and abandonment.
Okay, thank you.
We have a map showing the notification area. This
Ms.
is in
Cooper.
2016.
Okay, and Mr. Clark, that is, just for the record, for the citizens, that is a matter of public record, and someone could make a public records request and obtain that.
Absolutely.
So
This is why we pulled it up.
Exactly.
We do not want to do anything that causes harm, causes inconvenience to the citizens. But the process went through the legal process. The citizens of that area were notified in 2016, and the MPC recommended closure and abandonment, and the city council approved it.
okay. So if someone wanted to know if their home was mailed a letter, they can get it, a copy
We'll be
of
more
the
than
list.
happy to.
That's the point I wanted to make, so we can kind of move forward. I don't want to stifle anyone's opinion. I just want to make sure that we
No,
move
but-
forward.
Regardless of our vote today, the route to Linwood from Melanie would be Lynbrook. It will no longer be Sugarleaf, no matter what we do today, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Ms. White. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition to the application before our board today?
Well, ain't nothing else we can say.
All right.
I'd like to know what's the process of the appeal.
This
Yes.
this is a closure and abandonment. It will go to the city council for approval.
Okay. The
There's
city
no
council.
appeal.
There is no appeal process?
There's
city
no appeal
council.
necessary. It's gonna be heard by,
Okay.
you would appeal it to the city council, but the city council is gonna hear it anyway.
Okay.
So you're,
So you can just go to, you can
just give
certainly
it to the
go
city council.
to that meeting, which, will that be next,
On the 10th.
Yep.
yeah, on the
It may
10th?
not be heard on the 10th, but you can give it to your city councilman, Councilman Green,
Yeah,
and share your sentiments with him.
all right,
Yes, thank you.
thank you. I'm sorry I didn't say my name.
No, that's
I'm
okay,
sorry.
Miss Washington, is that right?
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else in opposition to this particular application, I don't know if the applicant would care for a rebuttal opportunity or if,
We don't see any need for one.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I want to direct the board to the screen to your left that shows the notification area with the 2016 case. Although it didn't get the entire neighborhood, it did get many of the houses that fronted directly on the roadway.
So I was saying there's.
So there was some notification that went out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jean.
You're welcome.
Board, what is your pleasure?
Based on what we've heard so far, I'd make a motion to approve the closure and abandonment.
All right, have a
As
motion to approve by Mr. Remedies, a second by Ms. Smith. Any deliberation? I'll call for the vote. All right, and that application is approved. Moving on to the next application, case number 19306, an annexation case. The applicant is Capital One Investments. If there's anyone here to speak on behalf of that application. All right, I don't see anyone representing the applicant. Am I correct? Anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
I don't know which one you've got there. I was on the zoning deal for, that's north side of town.
Okay, we're on case number 19306.
19306, well, I got 19306, but it says 5,200 feet north of Cooper Road, I believe.
Yes.
Is that the case?
Yes, sir.
That's it now?
I believe so, yes, sir. And the
Well,
application
am I
is,
ready to speak or somebody else?
well,
You're gonna have to talk up now. I'm hard of hearing and I can't see.
okay, this application is to have a
I've been
section.
here too long. That's the thing about it.
The applicant
And I've
is,
been down here before.
okay,
So
can you hear
I want
me?
to get some results out of this.
Can you hear me?
Do I?
Can
Yeah,
you
I
hear me?
you. Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, this is an application for an annexation of property to be annexed into the city limits.
No, I don't want it. I'm not willing.
Are you
to
in
go.
favor of that application? Okay, because I'm calling for speakers in favor of the annexation right now.
Madam Chair, I think this gentleman is,
Oh, we're not up yet?
I
Well,
don't
okay,
think
let
the
me
time
know
has
when we get
come.
up because I got a few words I want to say.
Yes,
All right?
sir,
And
I will,
you gonna
and
have to-
thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's gonna be me tomorrow.
Mr. Clark, I think we're gonna need a description of this application by someone.
I'll let Stephen know.
All
I
right,
can't see.
just so that we all know what case we're talking about. Mr. Jean,
Yes. Just give me a moment to
Sure, take
pull
your
this
time.
back up.
take your time.
I'm going to switch chairs so I can do that. Okay, this is an application to annex property that is north of MLK Boulevard at the end of David Rains. The property is approximately 120 acres and is currently zoned rural agriculture. The applicant proposed the development of 150 apartment units, retail spaces, and 125 family homes, single-family homes with the potential for campus housing. We had looked at all the different criteria that's associated with doing the annexation. This was one of these cases where, to be honest, it could have gone either way. But what was the staff really looked at is that this is immediately adjacent to a revitalization area that's identified in the master plan. And even though it's just right outside the loop that's identified in the master plan, which discourages edge development, this could be a catalyst for development in that area, and staff recommended approval of the annexation on that basis. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jean. All right, is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this annexation application? All right, seeing none, is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, Seeing none, board, what is your pleasure?
And
If you would like to speak, you need to come to the podium and be recognized. Thank
And
you.
Madam Chair, just while she's coming, I'd like to just reemphasize that we discourage annexation unless it's in the loop. Mr. Jean pointed out that this property is just at the edge of the loop. It's not within the loop, but it's not miles and miles and miles away from the loop.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Benet Bouchard Summers. My address is 6004 East Ridge Drive, zip code is 71106. I represent a locally family-owned LLC that has over 400 acres in this area. I wanted to find out more about the development plans for this. Right now, it is agricultural for us, and we grow a lot of different things up there. But we are in negotiations for a solar plant farm in that area as well, being part of an opportunity zone. So we're trying to get more details on that before we start dealing with other annexation possibilities.
Okay, so you're just here for some information, and how are you?
Informational. Pardon me?
It's good to see you. Bonet.
Thank you.
So you're here not really speaking for or against, you're just here to get information?
I want more information because, again, it's family-owned, one of which our cousins are in Alexandria, and he asked me to come today and represent the LLC.
Okay, all right.
So I need more information as to what they do to plan to develop this area and how it might affect our potential dealings as well.
Okay, and
it is in an opportunity zone as well, so I think that has a lot to do with it.
Maybe
Yeah, and we'll try to respond.
when
to
we
her.
deliberate, maybe we can get more information. Okay, thank you.
Mhm,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor or opposition to this application? I haven't seen anyone else. All right,
Madam Chair,
yes, Mr. Andrews.
concerned at this point, we need to perhaps make a motion to delay and convene.
All right,
So to get some more information, such as what Mr. May was interested in. I would be interested in it too.
yes, so I have a motion to defer by Mr. Andrews
I second it.
and a second by Ms. Smith. Do we want to
I have a
discuss this issue?
Question,
Mr.
is it,
Louise?
for staff, is this required, are they required to disclose what they're going to develop for the,
We already have information on what the development will consist of. We shared it with the board earlier. It will be a mixed-use development of residence, commercial,
Mr. Clark,
and so, yes, ma'am.
why is the developer the one's gonna do all this? What's his reason for not being here today?
He did not give us a reason why he would not be here today. The application again is only for rezoning. I mean annexation.
Right. I was like,
It's only for annexation. It's not for development. It's not for anything of that nature. It's only whether or not it will be annexed into the city limits of Shreveport.
but I'd still just in deliberation, I'm not necessarily for or against the, delaying the application, but if we want people to come to our community to go to college, and that sounds as if that's what they're trying to do, is make Southern University more appealing with having student housing around it and other things that, because there is not much up in that part of town. And, you know, if a student could live close to the school and have amenities, then maybe they would come to Southern and come to our community, making our school stronger. So that's just wanted to make that point, not necessarily in response to delaying it, but anyway, that's no more questions.
Yes, Mr. Andrews.
Is it possible that we could, since we're not talking about what the development's gonna be, all we're talking about is the annexation part of it, in hopes that something like what Mr. Ramirez just talked about may be the case. Of course, I don't have the southern colors on, but I do have a lot of blue and gold inside. I don't wanna get caught dead on that, but I wouldn't have a problem motioning to approve this request. Since we're only talking.
But,
I
think I like the first motion.
I have a question.
It does seem like the question of annexation depends a lot on the development. I mean, doesn't it? So when the board's deliberating, we don't allow speakers during that time. Thank
Okay,
you.
I would like to ask a question in opposition, please, when you get to that point.
So,
No.
I'd like to hear what you have to say.
No, I'm in line with what you're saying, but I like Windsor's motion to defer this issue at this time.
You second?
I agree.
I think Ms. Bessie seconded it.
Okay. Any further deliberation? Call for the vote on the
Why
motion.
are we I'm confused on why we're deferring it.
To find out what the use of the land, why would we annex the land?
We've shared with you the use of the land. But all of that would have to be approved through a PUD or site plan. All that's before you is whether or not the property is annexed into the city limits or not.
But it's, I
It
don't
will come
think,
back.
I don't think it's unreasonable though for my fellow board members to ask what will be developed here if we're going to take it on as a city, because it
pay
could
for
be a
it.
parasite or it could be something wonderful that
We don't know.
produces.
What cost is it to the city?
We're just trying to see if it's in the staff report, the renderings that are part of this application.
He should have it. You should have it.
He can show you
It could be done in the past.
what is proposed for the land.
Is that application scheduled to be heard next month?
Is it next one?
No.
No.
It's not, they're just having their preliminary meetings?
They're just trying to see, we're trying to get the horse before the cart.
Yeah.
Instead of approving site plans and approving rezonings and so forth, determining whether or not you want to recommend annexation.
All due respect, I'd like to hear the developer make these points.
And we're
I
fine with
agree
that.
too.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, to call for the vote on the motion to defer by Mr. Andrews, second by Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Smith, call for the vote.
Ms. Smith? You need to vote, Ms. Smith.
Oh, I thought. It's kind of finicky. All right, and the motion to defer has been approved.
Just for the record, Madam Chair, so you want the developer to come before you and explain to you if the property is annexed, what he would do with the property?
Yes, I
We
think
want to
that,
just know exactly what to notify him that you're.
I think the board would like to hear from the developer or whoever the applicant is, what they're voting to annex, exactly.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes, Mr. Ramirez?
comments for, I don't know if we send him a letter, email, or telephone call, but I think from what I'm hearing up here is it would be in his best interest to come before the board so he can answer any questions or alleviate any concerns that they have, because to vote on something almost as if we're writing a blank check would probably not be just,
Something that we're amenable
yeah.
with right now.
So, we wouldn't be comfortable with that is what
We
we're
will
hearing.
notify the applicant that
And
these are
of those
questions that
kind
you
of-
all want him to answer in person.
Thank you, and for any community members who want more information, I would invite you to our meeting next month. And thank you for being here. All right, the next item on our agenda, case number 19-321P. It's a special use permit and site plan. The applicant is Devin Smith.
I actually feel kind of special. I'm up here talking to y'all, but anyway.
Welcome.
How you doing? I'm Devin Smith here on behalf of 9391 Highway 1 South. I came up Erie Drive, but anyway.
Go ahead and give us your address.
My physical address is 13331 Highway 1 South, Shreveport, 71115.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm applying for a special use permit to
Can you
open up
tell-
a small retail nursery for the city of Shreveport. And I don't know why you wouldn't pass it. The place looked like a dump before I got there anyway. So, anybody opposed? It's gonna be a good business.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Anyone, any questions for Mr. Smith?
I like how you led with that. That's pretty good.
I got you. But, I mean, it's gonna be a retail-based nursery for the public, wholesale. I can kill everybody's prices in town, so sure all you guys come shop with me.
I'm sure you'll have great landscaping.
Oh, yeah, for sure, there's no doubt about it, so.
On the property, right. All right, thank you, Mr.
All right,
Smith. Anyone
thank you.
else here to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, anyone to speak in opposition? All right, board.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion to
Third.
approve
All right.
by Mr. Andrews, a second by Mr. Jessup.
Ms. Smith.
Ms. Smith?
She's quick on the
She's
draw.
quick.
She's quick, you gotta jump.
She's quick.
All right, and that application has been approved. Next application, case number 19441C. This is a zoning request, and the applicant is Mr. Alonzo Sanders. Welcome.
How you doing? Alonzo Sanders, 1019 Pickett Street.
You want to tell us about your application?
This is an application for, I forgot the actual address because there's so many different addresses on that lot. But it's to actually get it back rezoned to whatever would, during the UDC, whatever applicable will be applicable for the UDC to change.
Your zoning prior to the UDC?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Sanders? Is that all you want to say about your application?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone to speak in opposition to the application? And the first speaker will be the primary speaker. We'll have 10 minutes.
Is the gentleman that got up was confused? You want to seek an opposition?
Yeah, no. Hi,
My
welcome.
name is, thank you. My name is Joe Fertitta. I reside at 6121 Fern Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana. I am a property owner in the area in which Mr. Sanders would like to have rezoned. I also have no issue with a business that will bring something to the neighborhood. My family has owned property there for over 5 generations. Immigrants who came to this country in 1900. We believe in the neighborhood. Our family store is still there, still operating since 1927. Prior to that, there was a store there for 14 years my grandfather built with his own hands. I know the neighborhood. I grew up in the neighborhood over the top of my father's store. I believe that the neighborhood has a lot of potential. I'm not sure that it's for a used car lot. Go up on the 1400 block of Texas Avenue and you can see abandoned cars, abandoned car lots, and properties that have not been taken care of. I don't want that to happen in our neighborhood. There's a building that's partially built there, or started there, on the backside of the property. I think that Mr. Sanders wants to approach and build a 3 or 5 story building there. My understanding is it's not zoned for that. Number 2 is some of the properties that Mr. Sanders owns are adjudicated properties. The system of adjudication is a good thing for the city of Shreveport. You have properties that do not have tax-producing revenue out of them. They're sold at public tax auctions. The idea being that the person gets it should pay the taxes on it. I noticed Mr. Sanders in the tax rolls of Caddo Parish and City of Shreveport. He owes the parish over $5,423.26 on past due taxes and fines. City of Shreveport, he owes $3,055.57 for properties he owns in the city limits. These delinquent taxes date back to 2013. The properties that are owned are registered to Mr. Sanders, and I think the address is 1210 Gibbs Street, Mansfield, Louisiana. He says he lives at 915 Pickett Street. There's no house, no residence there. It's a piece of land. If it's in his name, he owns it, fine. But he's not living there. He doesn't reside there. All of the properties in that area all have potential. Housing, small businesses, I recently talked with someone who wanted to put a plumbing repair shop. Each of them have some merit to the community. Used car lots and used car dealers usually don't last long. My family's been in the automobile business too, with dealerships in Baton Rouge and Houma, Louisiana, and Thibodaux, Louisiana. I know what it takes to make it in the car business, and you don't do it by buying $200 cars and trying to sell them to your friends at 36% interest and $3,000 down. I think the city would be well served to reject this application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fertitta. Any questions for Mr. Fertitta? Seeing no questions? All right. Mr. Clark, the request here is for a C3, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is a used car lot appropriate? Can it be constructed in a C3 right now?
With the inside, in totally enclosed, it would be allowed. But getting outside display would require special use permit.
Okay. All right. Anyone else here to speak in opposition to this application?
I didn't fill out a
Welcome.
paper, is that okay?
I'm sorry?
I didn't fill out one of the.
I think you need
to go ahead and fill it
yeah,
out?
I think just for contact purposes.
Sure. I'm Agatha Fertitta McCall, and I own Fertitta's Deli at 1124 Fairfield Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana, and I reside at my place of business. I had written a letter to the council, and I had stated that it would be wonderful and to have businesses in our area, in my area, because right now I'm the only business there. What I would love to see happen is that we are so close to now Auctioners is opening up Shumpert again. We're close to Willis Knighton. They've redone their rehab center. We're close to Thrash Construction Company, which they've done a marvelous job of revitalizing the area. And I would think that that area would be more prone to, if considers if it continues to be residential under that zoning right now, that possibly someone would come in and start building nice apartment buildings or something for the medical people to be, because we're so close to that medical area. We're close to the Bone and Joint Clinic right off of Line Avenue. There's just so many more potential things that could be in that area, and that would bring growth and more businesses to further, develop the area from what it's right now. I would like to see that happen and not put something there that could cause more problems like you have on 70th Street. You've got 14 car lots within a 4-block area that have completely, they're pretty much look abandoned. And so we don't need that. We need something that's going to be potential a good area for us to have more opportunities for growth in that in the downtown area, and that's so close to downtown. It would be great to have that growth, the growth there for residents or for something that would help the city grow and not hurt the city. That's basically all I have to say.
All right, thank you,
Okay,
Ms. McCall.
you're
Any
welcome.
questions for Ms. McCall?
Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in opposition to this application? Welcome.
Hello, and I am sorry I haven't
You can do
filled
that. I mean, you don't
one
have to
out. I'll do it in a minute.
You can do it right afterwards.
Okay. I'm Jeff Everson, 1053 Boulevard Street is my address, and I previously represented this area on the Shreveport City Council. I suppose I have some confusion because there was a variety of different applications over time in this area. You know, that like at one point there was a building that was being built that didn't have a permit, but then they got a permit, but it was for a house instead of what looked like it was much larger than it looked like a commercial building. And then when I saw that the application is now for a car lot, you know, just some of the inconsistencies were a little concerning. You know, if it was just for development within the zoning that's allowed, then certainly people change their mind or have different market conditions. They may change their development plan. I mean, there's nothing alarming about that in and of itself, just that we're asking to do a special use exception for that after these zoning has just been, you know, reaffirmed with the adoption of the UDC recently. Like, I don't think the zoning around there is an accident. So to have a special use or a zoning change, you know, seems like you would have to have some merit for that was outstanding, and I don't see that. I mean, I certainly see in the area in a very close radius there are a number of abandoned car lots, there are empty car lots, there are you know, places that were built to be used car lots, that there were places that were built to be brand new car lots that are all abandoned within a couple of miles. So I don't know that it's, you know, a secure enough market to take a risk on that kind of thing when it could cause, you know, detriment. I mean, I think there are a number of development opportunities within the zoning that's there where the gentleman is allowed, and certainly he seems to have some great vision. I mean, I would love to encourage him to continue a development that is within the zoning characteristics, but it just seems too risky to change what's been, you know, set for that area.
Thanks, Mr. Everson. Any questions? I have a question for Mr. Clark before you sit down. Is there a special use permit application before our board?
Not today for this.
So we're not deciding whether or not there's a special use approval of a car lot?
He would have to come back for the special use permit.
Okay, so today the question is whether or not it should be zoned commercial or stay residential.
To revert back from, it was initially B3 and the comparable zoning class, and the UDC is C3, and that's what's before you today.
Okay, but nothing about a car lot.
Nothing but the car lot could go, it would just have to be totally enclosed.
Totally enclosed, meaning
No
meaning
outside.
what? Okay, and that's allowed in a C3?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ms. Cooper, I have a question about that.
Is anyone else here to speak in opposition to this application? Okay. Welcome.
Lavette Fuller, 519 Kirby. I am opposed to changing the zoning to C3. If anything in the future, I think that we should be looking at this being a mixed use or an urban village zoning. But I think that this is residential during the master plan and then the Unified Development Code for a reason. And I'd like for us to maintain that. Additionally, I'll say that I do think that the applicant does have a lot of good ideas, but this is something we've talked about a lot. Being a good neighbor means approaching your neighbors with your ideas, having concrete ideas, having a concrete plan in place before you move forward, not being prone to conspiracy theories, not thinking the world is against you, and actually trying to work with the people that are already there so that you can do the best possible thing so that everyone is thriving in the community. I want to see that corridor thrive. I wanted to see it be an area that is a gradual progression from downtown into the Highland area. There are a lot of things that could be done within the current zoning, or if we look at a less volatile zoning for that area, I would appreciate maybe considering that. But for the time being, I would just like to encourage you to vote against changing the zoning to C3. Thank you.
Okay, this is in your district?
Correct.
What do you have an opinion about what the ideal zone would be for this location?
Urban village, mixed use, so that you can have retail and a mix of retail and residential in the area. You wouldn't want to have something as strenuous as a car lot, even if it was enclosed. Now, here's the deal. If we were looking at an enclosed luxury car sales, used cars, antique cars, and we had a plan in front of us right now for that, and I realize we're not looking at the special use permit, but if that was what was being proposed, and we actually saw concrete plans for that with visual aids, that would be a completely different thing, because you could trust, you'd be moving forward as a good neighbor with trust that that's the plan that is going to be implemented. We have not seen that, and I think you also heard from Jeff that there's been an inconsistency with the things that have been applied for and then implemented since he first started working on this property. I think that the area going into downtown makes sense to be like an urban village, mixed use, gradual progression into the central business district.
Okay,
right.
thanks, Councilman. Any questions? Ms. Smith has a question.
Hi, Ms. Bessie.
How you doing? And I too, I'm not disagreeing with what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking that, in fact, I know we need something to enhance the area.
Yes, ma'am.
Something like multi-purpose.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm very familiar with that area coming up as a child.
Yes, ma'am.
It used to be residential clubs, a lot of things down in there. I would like for it, and I always was thinking that it was a historical area.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Well, one thing I learned from you directly, and I don't have to kiss up to you, you're my constituent, so you're always gonna give it to me straight, and I already know that. But I learned from you that it's important that neighbors actually reach out to neighbors about the development and about the changes that they plan on making, so the people that are gonna be affected are informed about what's going on. I learned that from you. So, all right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Questions? Ms. Fuller? Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, there you go. Anyone else here to speak in opposition to this application? I'm sorry, if you would like to speak, I need you to come forward and state your stand. Oh, I'm sorry.
Zoning 1019 Pickett Street, or are you dealing with 1023 Pickett Street?
He cannot speak.
Yeah, you can ask the staff, thank you. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head.
So he gets to come back. Let's vote.
Mr. Clark, looking at the categories of zoning, I'm looking at the C1, all the Cs. I'm trying to find, what would a good zoning category be for a mixed-use residential business?
The CUV would be, you wouldn't want to do that, but
You want to rezone the whole area?
we were talking about possibly recommending, and nothing emphatic today, taking another look at that area and possibly rezoning it to recommend rezoning it to another classification.
I noticed in your report, y'all mentioned the C1 as something to consider.
C1 for him would be a possible commercial zoning classification.
Is a mixed-use development, is that an option right now under an RUC?
No, but we could look at a CUC.
Okay, and that's something you could work with the applicant on?
We are more than happy to work with the applicant in rezoning the property. It's just unfortunate that the C3 is not appropriate for that particular location. But our office is open to sit down and have all the discussions with the applicant.
All right, thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this application? Okay, any rebuttal by Mr. Sanders?
Yes, I'm not looking forward to rezoning it to C1. I want C3. That's what I'm going for, and I'm ready to go to war behind that, any type of legal battle that we have to ensue. But what I would like to say, I appreciate everyone coming out, but they're talking about 1019 Pickett Street. We are talking about 1023 Pickett Street, which is an entirely different location. Haven't decided what business I want to do, but I do want it rezoned to the equivalent of what it was when I purchased this land. I purchased it as commercial. The gentleman who came up and spoke, I don't know his name, but he said that I was building before I had a permit. He's totally wrong. I don't know if he was just speaking or whatever, but I had a permit since I started on this building. But even before it was residential, I filled out a pre-site plan to get approved before the MPC board for commercial before the UDC came in picture. This was at the beginning of 2016. So I'm not apt to speaking about C1 at all with anyone. Is C3 what I'm looking for? If that's not what I'm going for, then I would rather take it to district court, appeal it, whatever I have to do to basically get it changed to what I need it to be changed to. But C3 is 1023 Pickett Street. It's not a car lot. I just want it to be rezoned back again to its equivalent or whatnot. So the car lot is for 1019 Pickett Street. That's what they should be opposing in front of the city council. And that'll be December 9th and 10th or whatnot. And I appreciate Ms. Fuller coming up. It shows me that she stands with Liz Swain. I don't know if she's in the pocket or whatever, but we'll figure that out later on.
All right, any questions for Mr. Sanders? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board, what is your pleasure?
You make a motion to deny.
There's a motion to deny the zoning change by Ms. Smith. Do you have a second? Second by Mr. Ramirez. Any discussion? All right, call for the vote on the motion to deny. So a vote of yes will be a denial of the zoning request.
Ms. Smith? It didn't catch yours again.
She got a bad controller.
All right, and that application is denied. Next item on the agenda is case number 19443C. It's another zoning request. The applicant is Eagle Water LLC. Welcome.
Hey, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Brad Armstrong at 602 Somerville Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm here on behalf of Eagle Water LLC. This is a former 3.5-acre church site that was zoned R17. For some reason, when the UDC was changed and modified, this property stayed R17. The church was flooded, had asbestos and some other things. They closed the facility. I represent a client that bought this. The land beside it to the north, south, east, and west is all C2, and we're just asking for a rezoning for the property from R17 to C2, like our neighbors.
Any questions for Mr. Armstrong? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right. Seeing none, board, what is your pleasure?
Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Andrews, second by Mr. Ramirez, I believe. Any discussion? Call for the vote. Yes. All right, that application is approved. Next application on the agenda, case number 19444C, another zoning request. The applicant is Johnstone Supply, I believe. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
Johnstone? Okay. You can come forward.
Yeah, my name is Sean McWilliams. Our business location is 747 Southport Drive here in Shreveport, 71108. We're very excited to be here at this time. We purchased a Johnstone Supply here 8 years ago, and we've been in a leased building at 747 Southport. We've come to the point where we're ready to purchase a piece of Shreveport, and we're excited about that. The building that we found that will allow us to do business like we would like to is at 730 Burnt Coons. It's currently zone C2, We're asking for it to be zoned to C4. Our business is a HVAC and refrigeration wholesaler. We also do sell retail over the counter to homeowners here in Shreveport, but our main focus is on contractors. Contractors come to us for parts and pieces and some equipment. We keep everything in-house as far as the building's concerned, so there won't be anything outside of the building, with the exception to our stateside truck and delivery truck. So we're asking for this zoning change from C2 to C4. We currently own 11 Johnstone supplies throughout the Midwest. There's over 420 in the country. We have our main headquarters is in Missouri. We own 6 in Missouri, 4 in Arkansas, and very excited to be down here in Shreveport where there's some good Cajun food.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McWilliams. Any questions from our board? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Oh, okay. No one else to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition to this application? All right, seeing none.
Second.
A motion to approve by Mr. Remedies, a second by Mr. Joseph, or Mr., I'm sorry.
Elberson.
Mr. Elberson. I think there were 3s at the same time, I couldn't hear. All right, any discussion? Call for the vote. That application is approved. All right. Next case, number 19451C and 19322P. These are the UDC amendments.
You got the site plan
Did I
approval.
oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one, pardon me. 19445C, special use permit and site plan. We'll have our same applicant back. Sorry, I saw your name and just skipped right by it.
That's
Welcome
okay.
back.
Yes, Sean McWilliams at 747 Southport Drive. Looking for a special use permit and site plan approval that we've put together for the location that you just approved for the rezoning.
Okay, great. Any questions for Mr. McWilliams? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this site plan application? Anyone to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, board, what is your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Remedies, second by Ms. Smith. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All right, that application is approved. Thank y'all. Now, moving on to the UDC amendments. Case numbers 19451C and 19332P. And I think there was a request for a presentation.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr.
I
Bailey?
do have a presentation. Emily, can you pull that up on the screen? Yeah, there it is. The presentation is going to cover basically both agenda items 14 and 15, so both sets of code text amendments. If members of the public would also, who's in the audience, would like to.
And I just wanted to add that, Madam Chair, that once Mr. Bailey is finished with his presentation, probably the citizens that are still in the audience may have some comments whether they're for or against these amendments.
Okay.
Because these amendments will affect trailers, RVs, boats, and so forth.
All right, just be sure and fill out a
Members of
slip.
the public can go to our website, ShreveportCattleMPC.com. I'll guide you to it real quick. If you go up to where it says presentations, click on presentations. Even within the presentation, you'll see it right there. It'll be 19451C, 19322P. If you click on that, if you want to follow it, you're more than welcome to. But while you're pulling that up, I'll give the members of the audience as well as the MPC board some background of what the MPC is. It's a planning commission established in 1954 by Act 189 of the Louisiana legislature. Basically, it says that the orderly physical development of the city of Shreveport and the surrounding area of Caddo Parish known as the planning limits, approximately 5 miles beyond the incorporated boundary. That's what's the MPC planning limits. Those 5 miles are set by Caddo Parish Commission, not the City Council, not the MPC, but the Caddo Parish Commission. They're allowed to set it up to 5 miles. The last time that was actually changed was in the 70s. I've gotten with Caddo Parish to see when the exact date was. We believe it was 1978, but that's not 100% right now. What are the MPC responsibilities? Basically, we take in zoning, plating, site planning, variance applications. We also do zoning enforcement, long-range planning, and we issue certificates of occupancy and sign permits. This map shows the MPC planning limits. The area of Shreveport only takes about 40% of it, 122.4 square miles. Caddo Parish, or at least the areas within the planning limits, take up 183.8 square miles, or 60% of our planning limits. Within those 183.3 square miles, 171 is zoned RA. What is the Unified Development Code, better known as the UDC? It's the official land use and development regulatory ordinance for both the city and the parish. What I mean by the parish, it's the area that falls within the jurisdiction of the MPC's planning area, but that's outside the corporate limits of the city of Shreveport. What is the purpose of the UDC? Is to combine all zoning and subdivision regulations into a single code. Prior to 2017, they were in 2 codes for both the city and Caddo Parish. This new framework allows for predictable results, fulfillment of the quality of life objectives from the master plan, and encourages economic development. Why was it created? The ordinances that we were going off of played off the 50s and 60s, which meant they were outdated and resulted in inconsistent decision making. The UDC consolidated these rules and simplified the application process. The Shreveport UDC was implemented in May of 2017. The Caddo Parish UDC was implemented in December of 2017. We are not the only city that has unified development codes. San Antonio, Memphis, Arlington, Corpus Christi, Durham, North Carolina. Even if you look regionally, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Tyler, Texas, and Bossier City all have unified development codes. The Great Expectations Plan called for unified development code. That reflects the goals and objectives of the master plan by creating a long-term foundation for quality development. From a historic perspective, if you look at model code enabling legislation from the 1920s, over 90 years passed, where 1957 was the first time that our area got a first comprehensive plan and when the old code was implemented. So over 60 years, you have a set of over 400 amendments, which was basically putting Band-Aid on a leaky tire. Briefly, I'll go over the code text amendments that are in front of you today. The first set are just various code text amendments. I'll restate again, the purpose of both the city and the Caddo Parish UDC was to consolidate the former subdivision and zoning regulations. It's a living, breathing document, so occasionally you'll need corrections and policy amendments to correct things such as oversight, grammatical mistakes, and errors. Staff is proposing the following amendments. I'm not going to go through them one by one. They're in the staff report, but amending use definitions in Article 2, design standards in Article 4, updating some incorrect figures in Article 4 as well. A new zoning district is being created for Article 5, updating various definitions in Article 5 as well, use definitions in Article 6, development standards in Article 7. One piece of important information in Article 8 that has to deal with the storage of trailers and recreation vehicles. Right now, it calls that they can't be in the front or corner side yard for more than 3 days. And it also says it has to be within fully enclosed structure within the interior side yard. We're recommending that those be struck from the record at this time for both the parish and city UDC, while staff has a time to look at how other jurisdictions and what best practices are on how to store recreational vehicles, whether it be in the city limits or out in the parish. Landscape provisions, the Article 15 table has to do with closure and abandonment. Zoning application procedures in Article 16 and 17, non-conforming provisions in Article 18, and annexation provisions, as well as closure and abandonment in Article 20. All of these are part of Exhibit A in your staff report. The second set of code text amendments, which are part of the it's agenda item 15, is the neighborhood participation plan. Just moving towards a greater public participation. Imagine a scenario in which neighborhood stakeholders meet with an applicant of a proposed project, exploring creative solutions in hopes of agreeing on a decision that is supported through consensus and agreement. It becomes a requirement for the applicant to meet for certain types of land development applications to seek the input of neighborhood associations, neighborhoods, as well as and the applicant before they go to a public hearing in front of the MPC. That reality is very possible. It's called the Neighborhood Participation Plan. Simply put, it's a process created to enhance opportunities for property owners, neighbors, and neighborhood organizations to participate in land use decisions that affect them. The purpose is to encourage early citizen participation in the development review process, open a dialogue between the applicant and affected neighborhoods and individuals, and improve communication between the development community, citizens, and the MPC. It would be a 6-step process that actually fits within the existing timeline for applications. Pre-application meeting, we already have this. This is where the applicant comes in to discuss the project and clarify, and we would clarify what the NPP process is. That number 2, the preparation for the NPP is actually the applicant going out, putting together where the meeting's going to be, what time. Then they would give us where that meeting would be. We would send notification to the residents. Then the applicant would actually hold the neighborhood meeting. After the meeting, they would fill out a report. That report would actually be part of the staff report, which would go in front of the board at the public meeting. This is where the current application timeline and the NPP process come together. Those are the 6 steps. That's the current timeline. When you combine them together, the neighborhood participation program does not affect the application timeline. Other cities in the country have this exact, either they call it a neighborhood participation plan or a citizen participation plan. There's a place in Arizona, I'm not going to try to butcher the name, Del Mar, California. California, New Orleans has one, Oakland Park, Florida, and Topeka, Kansas all have this type of plan in some form or fashion. Some feedback, we actually, this was for you, Mr. Curtis, we actually reached out to some of the cities to get some feedback. All of them, most of them said that the communication it was improved between the applicant and the citizens. The only one, I guess, con against it was number 4, citizens have used the requirement program to delay projects, and that came from New Orleans. Questions go for both sets of amendments, and I will give it back to the chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Good job on your presentation. Mr. Ramirez has a question, I think.
Well, I guess a comment or discussion. The last,
and if y'all want to break them up and talk about Agenda 14 first and
That's
then
what I'm
15,
doing.
but I'll let y'all decide how
yeah,
you
that's
want
what
to
I'm
do
doing.
it.
The last ordinance amendment to require a developer to meet with the public, I think is still not making our economic development in this community any better. It makes it more difficult. And if you think that people can collectively decide what this market will bear, that is about as a definition of government overreach as ever. So I can't imagine this being successful with all of the, I think the bridges that Mr. Clark is really striving to mend with the development community and the building community. We're finally beginning to get some traction, and I see this taking us back to where we were not too long ago and pushing us further down the list on places to develop. If I think I've made the suggestion before that if there's some sort of plan that you guys could put together that if the developer would like to meet with the community and facilitate that, but I think to put that on someone, and I'll take it for an example, the Madison Park development that is generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad valorem taxes for our community. And a lot of the people that were here ready to tar and feather Ricky Leonard are now customers of his in that same place because they just couldn't see it until it was built. Well, the average person that's not creative or developer don't see what could be and the benefits to that. So it shouldn't be as if it's a vote of what we're. I just see that that's crazy. I won't go on and on about it, but I think it's the challenges that we've had in this community that's pushing Shreveport further and down the list of places that developers want to invest their money because it's one more thing that they have to go and facilitate and do. I'm all for the citizens having an opportunity to come and voice their opinion. That's why we have this meeting. But I don't think that's going to be something that's going to, another week of planning and facilitating all that. I think that it's really taking us in the wrong direction. And that's all the comments I had about the that amendment.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Remedies.
May I respond?
Mr. Clark?
And I totally agree with Mr. Remedies. We do not want to delay development in any form or fashion. I think if you look out in the audience now, this is an example of something coming in to their neighborhood that they were totally unaware of, that they received no prior notification of, and they start receiving notification that they were in violation of the ordinance. What the neighborhood participation plan would have done would have caused us to have gone out, because we are recommending that we are initiating enforcement of the ordinance. It would have required us to go out and meet with these citizens, explain to these citizens exactly what's going on, what's about to happen, and they would have had a thorough understanding. Basically, they were blindsided. They just received some letters from us, which we apologize to them for. But this is why we're so gung-ho on making sure that neighborhoods and citizens are aware of what's about to happen in their neighborhood. One of the insistence on my part was because I agree wholeheartedly with you, and I faced a lot of the people that were discouraged and not very supportive of the things we were doing in the MPC, that this would cause no additional time. It had to fit within the process that we've established, that we did to shorten by 2 or 3 weeks. And it could not, because initially it was going to take longer, and I said, that's impossible. But it does not go outside, it does not determine whether or not a development occurs. It can possibly give the answers to these citizens that they will be interested in before they come down here before a public hearing. And that's the only reason that we're trying to do this, to give them the information that they need to understand what's about to happen. The decision for the recommendations or approval will still rest with the MPC board.
I understand, and I guess my response would be, and I think it's great that you guys are forward thinking and trying to head some of that off, but we had some discussions earlier in the year about providing a hub for the public to get the correct information and not hearsay, not rumors, but what's really going at the corner of their neighborhood. And you had said that there were you guys had some resources that we could implement, but what I'm talking about is if someone is a developer from outside of this community, and this is another piece of the puzzle that they have to pay a skilled professional and to facilitate these meetings, or maybe buy an airline ticket and fly in here before that. But if we provide them with everything that they've provided you, and then I had suggested earlier that it's a requirement that you have a representative of record that could speak to someone regarding your project, whether it be the civil engineer, the architect, whoever it would be. But that takes care of that without, because I'm just really, really sensitive when it comes to, because you've made so much headway with the development community that I'm just saying there's another way to solve the problem that you guys are facing, so people aren't so upset when they come down here, and still try to be a path of least resistance when people are developing around the country, because we still don't have the return on investments that some of these other markets that are listed can provide to a developer. And I just don't want to scare anyone away by more onerous. So I think there's some middle ground there that we could meet there and maybe provide all those documents online with a map of the city. And if you want to see anything that's even being applied for in your community, it's there in your neighborhood. It's overlaid on a map, much like the zoning map is. So I caution everyone to put another hurdle in the way of development. That's all the comments I have.
I'll follow up with one quick question. Is this something that, just refresh my recollection, that y'all are considering applying to every application, or just
No, there would
remind
just
me?
be the rezoning, special use permits, non-residential variances, PUD and SPUD, and certain subdivision applications, not all. There would be some
So
exemptions.
automatically, or does some type of opposition trigger this process?
No, any zoning
Always.
application, any special use permit, they would be required to go through the neighborhood participation plan.
And it would be required, it's not just suggested.
Yes, the way it's written would make it a requirement. But it doesn't
think in
affect
essence-
it doesn't affect the timeline of the application process.
And the subdivision exemptions specifically are if it has been rezoned, the subject of a rezoning or planning to development within a year, they don't have to do it. If it is less than 30 units, it doesn't has to be done. So that wouldn't require repetitive meetings when the issue was dealt with the zoning case.
But I think, and what Leah just said is, if we just make it a suggestion and we put the two together, because it says a lot when an applicant comes in and there's 50 people here in opposition to something and say, well, I've been calling the guy and he won't call me back. Well, that says a lot about his character. If you're forcing him to go in front of a group of neighbors and he doesn't want to be there, he's probably not going to be very polite. It's not going to go any better. So if you facilitate a means for those two to connect, and if he doesn't want to provide that information, he gets what he gets when there's 70 people in the audience.
Right.
And that tells you what his intentions are. But a lot of what I'm trying to say is, if someone lives out of town, which many of our developers do, and they give addresses in Chicago and Washington and things like that, that this could be a strong suggestion. And you could say, hey, the mechanism is there. When Miss Bessie says, have you spoken to the neighbors in the neighborhood? And he says, well, I haven't heard from anybody. Well, that's not true, because we put this mechanism there to connect you with anybody that's concerned. And if you failed to make the connection to put out the fires that have been lit, that's on you. And then it's a little easier to deny their application, right? But to require that, because a lot of times no one cares that there's just another business that's going to open up, that's going to be changed a little bit. And if they did, we have everything in place. So we're making more rules when we already have things to address this, which is the public notifications that we send out through the mail, the signs that we put in the yard, and all the other things that we do. So let's just stick with that and put the mechanism in place if anybody wants further information, and leave it there.
Real briefly, I would kind of echo what he's been saying in essence. I think that suggesting or urging them to make that outreach is one thing, but I think to require them, I think it sets us in a bad posture.
Mr. Colvin?
Adam, just a quick question, and he's talking about out-of-town folks that are coming in developing. But we have architects, engineers, builders, developers here. Has this balloon been floated up that said you're now gonna be required? Have we even talked to locals about this?
The next step prior to sending, we have 60 days to send this to City Council. The next step was to kind of do a grassroots approach, not only going to the neighborhoods asking them more information about what they wanted, but the development community as well as meeting with the AIA, meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. That is our next step.
I think we kinda got the cart ahead of the horse. I think I'd have done that first before we drew this up, because I know the neighbors might like it, because it might, like Ronnie says, stagnate developers coming in. But I think we need to find out what our, local developers and engineers and architects think about it. I don't know if any other company, I'll say the B word, I don't think Bossier makes them do that. And you mentioned San Antonio and other places. I don't think this is required in other unified development codes.
It is not in those listed above.
Well, I just
I-
asked Chris, oh, good.
It's all right. I mean, I do encourage community in the involvement and what they want and all that. But I don't think it should be a thing that we put together and help them with, but it shouldn't be a mandated.
Yeah, I think.
I think that's what, are you through, Ms. Dematova?
Yes, that's fine.
I think that's what I'm really hearing is the part that's a mandate. Now, I strongly encourage, it's okay.
That's different. Sure.
And we give them the avenues and the venues and stuff to do that.
We can share with them that, this gives you an opportunity to meet with the neighborhoods and share with them what's about to happen. We take advantage of that, they can present reports.
And y'all will know, sometimes it's clear which ones are going to provoke a lot of opposition in a 3-hour meeting.
I think
that program that would be in place is really good, because some of these developers don't really know how to reach out and how to get these people's attention, or who cares, who the stakeholders are. They don't really know. So I think the procedure is really good.
And I'd just like to say, if it was my decision, and I'll take full credit for it, I wanted input from the MPC board, policymakers for the Metropolitan Planning Commission, before we went out sharing this information with anybody else. And that's why we have not been out and met with any of the development industry at this point. And I think that, the things that we're hearing from you all, we will be able to modify the process. I did not hear anybody say that they were opposed to the process. I just continue to hear you may be requiring too much.
It seemed like a singular issue. I mean, as I heard it. Yeah.
And I'm good with that. I embrace what Mr. Ramirez has said. We don't need to go back there ever again. And if that's the only problem that we have, I think we can modify it real quickly as we listen to your input.
All right. Is there anybody, should I open this up to the public?
Well, I think you
Mr.
need
Bailey?
to take, each agenda item, talk about the first set of amendments.
We're not gonna stick
and
with
then
this one?
is the second, y'all.
I think y'all are fine with the first set, right?
Well, but they still need to ask for public input and,
One more question before we start that, if you don't mind. On this one, number 20, I see strike through the storage of trailers, recreation vehicles, that's nixed.
Well, so I combined both the sets of code text amendments in one presentation. There's agenda item 14, which talks about 29 amendments. These are the various code text amendments. The other 9 code text amendments, agenda item 15, have to do with the neighborhood participation plan. So in sticking to the agenda, you need to talk about the 29 agenda items. One of those amendments, it deals with recreational vehicles and striking through.
That's number 20?
That's number 20 in 19451C and 19322P.
But the document I'm looking at, it's got strike through. Is that what the staff is recommending?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. All right.
Okay, so we just had a discussion about 19459C, right?
Correct.
Now, procedurally, I'm asking because I don't know. Do we want to open that particular application up for public discussion, or just continue on to the next application as a board deliberate. I don't really know how to approach.
Let's get that portion out so these citizens will understand and be able to go home.
If
That
right,
because
that's
of the
what
Caddo Parish Commission, we have removed any enforcement of parking, boats, RVs, trailers, or any other uses in their driveway until we can further study. So as of today, if you recommend this to go forward, there will be no enforcement. All letters will be void, and we will just further study this problem. We heard what they said in both the city and in the parish, and we need to come up with a better solution to the problem.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Reeves.
Question, just for the record and for the audience. Now, when this comes back up, so the public can be involved, what is the best way for them to stay in tune with this, where they know that it's coming back up, where they can give their input at that time?
And that's why we're trying to organize the neighborhood participation program.
Okay.
So that we have connection with the neighborhood, so that we can reach out to the neighborhood and share with them what we're proposing and get input from them. Like I said, this has been on the books for a number of years.
Yes.
But we just were able to become proactive and go out. But before we start anything else, we will reach out to these citizens in North Caddo Parish, South Caddo Parish, and West Caddo Parish, and all over the city of Shreveport, because everybody is unhappy with the enforcement of this portion of the ordinance.
Okay. So there'll just be an outreach as far as public notification if this is coming back to.
And we tried to get them. This was an excellent way to start the contact process, but we hope that they will reach out to our office so that we can and give us contact information. We will be on Facebook. We will be on the webpage and so forth, so we can notify them exactly what we're doing.
Specifically, specifically, we were just concerned with the recreational vehicles, RVs, et cetera.
Are you doing a particular amendment on here?
That's the one that we're referencing, the one where those things talking about there not allowed are struck out.
Yeah.
Which one is that item?
It's number 20, agenda item 14, amendment number 20.
I think if you would just, Madam Chair,
Right.
allow,
Which
if
is-
anybody wants to speak for or against that, so that these citizens can go home.
Sure. Okay. I feel like there's a bunch of things on here, but we're just focusing on this one.
Right.
Okay.
I would venture to say that probably the majority of them are here for that reason.
Okay. So this is, well, it's right here. Well,
But Madam Chair, they're saying more than that, so you can let them just come and speak on both of the amendments.
on these two. I know.
Not to be out of order, but when do we get a chance to just ask questions and follow up? The grouping everything together, us not knowing if our questions are answered, we're lost.
Yeah, just open it up.
Okay. All right, so are we opening up the discussion for all of these amendments, if anyone has any other ones?
The amendments are in 2 agenda items.
Right.
There's the 29 that are the various ones that I'm sure that as the audience members.
Okay,
Correct.
which we
That's
haven't really
451
discussed yet.
and 322.
They're confused.
Well,
They're confused on which.
I would start, and I don't.
With
I just
agenda
think, Madam
item,
Chair, if you just
agenda
let
item
them come.
19451C.
Just allow them to
All right.
come up and speak.
That's the agenda item we're now discussing. There's 29 proposed amendments. So if there's any public discussion on any of these 29, which would include the storage of trailers and recreational vehicles, if that's the one you're concerned about, I don't have telepathy. Okay, now, do we have what's our time limit, time management on each of these speakers?
Well, if you follow protocol, it would still be 10 minutes for starting off people who are for, and then going into opposition. The first speaker would have 10 minutes, 3 minutes following.
For each of the 20?
No, just each speaker can come up and they would have 10 minutes and 3 minutes.
All right, so on agenda item number 19451C, there's 29 amendments. And you are going to be the initial spokesperson, so you have 10 minutes to speak on any or all of these 29. Anyone following you will have 3 minutes.
Okay, can I ask one question before? I'm not quite sure of all 29.
Right.
Okay, so y'all ready to start mine?
Yes, go.
Jessica Tullis, 5474 Primitive Baptist Church Road, zip code 71107. We initially, all of this got brought to our attention when people were cited for the RVs and boats. So when we showed up a week ago and talked to the commission because we were upset, it was only RVs and boats. Well, we have had a chance to open up the UDC and kind of read over the 312 pages. And with that said, it's like we've seen there's a whole can of worms. We live out of the city limits for a reason, so that we can enjoy our property and do what we want on our land. And with that being said, per the UDC, there is a fence issue. We have to get a permit for a fence. That's 7.4, I believe, to 7.9L maybe. Then you've got the home business. So if my neighbor teaches piano lessons, she can only have certain students and do it at certain times. And per se, that person could live on 50 acres, but they're told when they can hold piano lessons. Okay, you're agreeing to the RVs and boats now, but what about those people with commercial vehicles who have 50 acres, 10 acres, 12 acres that run a business and have their commercial vehicles on their property? Then we can go to livestock, where we have to report in our horses to mosquito control. And then if they pass away, we'll have to report that in. We're told how many cattle we can have. Then you got carports. You can have a carport, but it has to be 10 feet in height maximum and 20 feet in length. And there's an issue on trees, but I think somebody else will speak about that. Again, I did not know about this. I understand that it was put in the Shreveport Times. They didn't have to let anybody know if it affected more than 15 people. And I am guilty of not paying attention to things if I didn't feel like it affected me. But from seeing last week, I will never miss another meeting, or I will watch every meeting from now on so that we don't get sidetracked again. So it's more than just RVs and boats. We live out of the city limits for a reason.
All right, thank you. Ms. Tullis, any questions for Ms. Tullis? All right. This just looks like it's being erased. You don't have to go further.
You let them go.
So-
You just let them go ahead
Okay.
and share
Okay.
all the information.
All right,
We welcome it.
all right. Anyone else here wish to comment on the amendment?
Randy Rasmussen, 4904 Albany Road, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71107. As she was mentioning about this, y'all have made us start reading this ordinance, and it's just like a whole can of worms. The tree ordinance thing is like, on certain size lots, you have to have a certain number of trees within 10 feet of your front yard, of your front property line. Well, if you have power lines overhead, or if you have sewer line, water line underneath, or gas lines underneath, those tree roots are going to do a whole lot of damage. That's one thing. And then the RV and the commercial truck, she mentioned about the carport being 20 feet maximum length. Well, I have a single wheel pickup truck with an 8-foot bed on it. It's not a commercial vehicle, it's a pickup truck. It's 28 feet long. I'm sorry, not 28. It's 24 feet long. You have to leave it half hanging out. And then we have the animals that she mentioned, and then what else was I? It was, oh, window air conditioners. I think UDC tells you what windows of your house you can put a window air conditioner in. I mean, there's just so many things, and then.
All right.
Now, the NPP that you were, Mr. Ramirez, was opposed to so much, there's a bad problem of communication. Hardly anybody gets the times anymore. And we don't know what's going on in our neighborhoods. This MPP idea, oh my God, that's so wonderful. To a point. I understand what you're saying about putting more regulation on businesses, but if they're going to come in and put a subdivision in our area, we want to know what's coming ahead of time, more than just the 300 feet, like the street closing case you had earlier. I was looking at that map where you circled what people were notified. Everybody on the other side of that street weren't notified. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably who was here. They didn't know that thing had been closed. Nobody put up barriers. And I think Mr. G maybe can help me on this one. Many years ago, I
Good to
worked
see you
with him
again,
on
Mr.
getting my
Rasmussen. Yes.
business set up in my home. At that time, if I remember correctly, wasn't the communication circle a lot larger than 300 feet?
No, sir. Actually, it was 300 feet, and then we've expanded it to 500 feet recently under Mr. Clark's direction.
But it needs to expand the notification zone, at least on it. If you don't do the MPP, at least expand that to more than 300 to 500 feet. Should be a mile radius, because anything within a mile of you is going to affect your home. Street closers, where you can park your RVs, all of that's going to affect us. And the MPP sounds like such a great idea to me, because it would give us more. And guys that say, oh, well, we're not set up to notify neighbors. Well, sorry, get that way. I mean, we all have laptops. We all have cell phones.
Thank
we all
you.
have Facebook.
Thank you. I'm sorry. It's my job to say your time has expired, but I appreciate all of that. Keep noting it. Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Any
I have one quick question.
questions for
I
Mr.
can talk about any of the amendments, correct?
Yeah, just 1 second. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Rasmussen? All right, go ahead and you can state your name.
I think they're going to be here for a while, so I jumped up here. John B. Atkins III, 235 Kings Highway, Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm here to talk in behalf or support the change in the UDC Amendment 13 regarding retail sales of alcohol. Under that, y'all it had been proposed to change it, the C2 zoning, where you could only get a variance on the C2 zoning for alcohol sales if it was not contiguous to residential property. I want to talk in support of that. MPC staff report from October 2nd, 2019 report said that this would have increased crime at this location. And this has to do with case 19411C, where they were going to put a liquor store at Centenary Boulevard near Olive Street. The increased crime at this location and then there was a previous denial of a lounge in this area by the MPC in 2013 due to proposed complaints of increased trash, crime, and noise in the area. This location was also 1,000 feet from the Highland Park, and there was a large number of homes in this area. I recommend to support this change in the way C2 zoning is used under the number 13 that y'all do. And the main reason for that is for the last 2+ years, we spent in excess of $40,000 fighting the liquor store that was going into the old Circle K at Gilbert and Kings Highway, and actually we still have that under litigation. If this was in place, then we would not have had to do that. And also, if all y'all were in place, we probably would not have had the problem either, because y'all denied a extremely similar zoning change or special use permit at 1911 Centenary Boulevard. That's all I had. I tried to get it all squeezed in.
All right. And you said it was Mr. Atkinson?
Yeah, Atkins.
Atkins.
John Atkins.
John, okay. Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Atkins? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
right, welcome.
Hi, my name's James Brown. I live at 1243 Pine Island Road. And my mom actually was on the MPC for 6 years. So I grew up here. I moved away to California. And then I moved back because I got tired of all the rules. I lived out in California for about 8 years. And I didn't like all the rules, so I moved back. I like to hunt. I like to fish. I live out on the lake. And with the UDC, it's just not really set up for us. I mean, that's why there were 2 different codes for so long. We kind of had our codes, Shreveport had their codes. And it just worked for us because of that. And I think that's kind of what the problem is this Unified Development Code. It's not Mr. Clark's fault. I mean, I know he's came in to kind of a hornet's nest. I know there's some problems a couple of years ago before we got rid of Mr. Sweeney, because we didn't renew his contract, which thankfully y'all didn't. And I know Mr. Sweeney.
That's not what happened, but anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I thought that's what it was.
No.
Well, he left to go to Oklahoma, I guess, or whatever, but good riddance. He was kind of the guy that came up with this UDC and kind of pushed this forward. And he purchased the UDC for $650,000, and it was made for California. It's for another city. It's not really for us down here. It's not really for this area. And it was made, and he purchased this, and it's not really for us. And that's the problem that I see, is that it's not for us. Maybe Shreveport wants to do that, and I'm fine with that. But like, I don't want it for Caddo Parish. It's just not for us, and that's the problem. And I mean, there's just going to be, the RV's just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be people complaining every time something else comes up, because the code really wasn't written for people that live a rural lifestyle, and that's the problem.
Are you more than 5 miles outside?
No, man. No, sir, I'm not. I'm within that 5-mile buffer, and I know that 5-mile buffer, that's there in case the city decides to expand its boundaries so that the codes are the same, and I understand that. But, like, it's been like that since, I mean, I went to Northwood High School, and it's been like that forever. They haven't expanded. I mean, they've still got their area they're trying to handle. And I mean, the UDC might work great for Shreveport. I just don't know if it's going to work for us that are outside of it. And I would, because we're going to have to change so many things. I mean, this is just the first thing. And there's going to be other people. I mean, this is going to keep happening. So I just hopefully we can come to something that's going to work for all of us. That's not, I mean, you can't lump 5 miles out of the city limits in the city all into the same code. I mean, I was RA, and now I'm R112. So, like, if I wanted to have a cow or I wanted to have a goat, I fell right under an acre. And I can't do that now. Like, I mean, I wasn't going to have 30 goats, maybe just 1 goat. I get poison ivy all the time. He was going to help me with that. But, like, now I can't even have a goat. So, I mean, there's just all these things that have changed. When I bought my property, it was like that. So, I know I'm probably out of time.
Sorry, Mr. Brown, but thank you. We appreciate that. Any questions for Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I have a
Mr.
comment.
Ramirez has a
I was just going to say that, understand that the commission, the Caddo Parish Commission, are the legislators for.
I know, and I'm going to be there with them tomorrow.
Yeah,
so.
very good. So
I know it's not y'all's.
Well, no, we drafted it
right
within this office and then send it out. But that was, I assure you that wasn't something that our previous executive director just did. It was something that was a joint effort, and then the intent was good, which is what most bad things start as. But not that it's bad. But anyway, you can lobby your commissioner, and not just the commissioner in your district. Speak to several of them that you can get appointments with, and a lot of these guys are good people and will listen to you and will understand. But you have to be very specific in how it's not a good idea for your house. And when they request that our office revise it because they want to pass it into the parish ordinance, that's how that'll happen. So this isn't something that the MPC is just going to throw a blanket over. They have to have adopted that and made it law. All we do is draft it and send it to them.
Right.
And there's been a lot of things that we realized were not, but it's very long. So I just wanted you to understand that.
Yes, sir.
Just
I appreciate that.
Lobby the commission for specifically what, and you can't. It can't be just this. This doesn't work for outside the city. It has to be. This is a reason why this specific line item is not good for my neighbors.
Right.
And this is why we would like to change. So just
Yes, sir.
give you some insight
I
on how
appreciate
to
it.
go about that effectively.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
just responding to Mr. Brown, this is, like he said, this is the tip of the iceberg. Possibly, because I don't want to point any fingers at anyone, possibly we did not do as well of a job as we should have reaching out to the persons outside the city limits of Shreveport when we recommended, the consultants recommended the UDC for adoption. So they're gone, we're here, we're trying to engage the citizens outside the city limits of Shreveport and the citizens inside the city limits of Shreveport. So I just wanted to share with them, as you've done, that our ears are wide open.
Right.
There are things that they're right.
And
They're not applicable for the parish.
it's not easy to do that.
It's not.
I think for 2 years, the staff spent holding public forum, 4 years, holding public forums and working through elected officials, and it was a very aggressive campaign. So I don't know that everyone is aware of how much public awareness there was, but you do have to pay attention to where you live. So I don't know, it's hard to get each individual's attention until they have something that affects them directly.
And this is why I said this is the tip of the, this is where it starts. If this is what brought the citizens to the MPC, we can build upon this.
Yeah.
And hear what their input is. And we're willing to do that. The reason is that we could not get people to engage in the meetings that you're talking about.
It's very difficult.
It was
so.
impossible almost, but it's starting now, and they know who we are, and
okay.
that's extremely
And-
important.
All right, so welcome.
Thank you. Jane Tappy, 4380 Acorn Circle, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71107. Thank you, Mr. Clark. That's my first big asterisk, that the door has been opened so we can begin this, if the word's battle, begin the acknowledgement that we messed up. Somehow we let the UDC sneak in on us, and now we know what's going on, and now we have to fight it versus just be aware of what was happening. So in no particular order, just want to hit on some of the things that you already mentioned. In 2017, it was brought out in the newspaper. We don't want to do newspaper anymore. Got to have more communication to us. Last time I was here, I brought up the question, did we verify how many people were changed from RA to RE and how they were notified of that? And we're going to revisit that again, I think, right? Okay. Back to the UDC, just to pick out some of the things. I don't even have chickens, y'all. I don't probably think any of y'all have chickens. This UDC tells us how many chickens you can have, how many square feet you need, how you can't have a rooster. This is craziness. Just look at section H on page 7 here about chickens. That is way too invasive. Somebody hadn't got any business about chickens. Okay, Article 18 that Adam mentioned about the mobile homes, I don't know what that was. You mentioned what we were being approving today was about Article 18 concerning manufactured or mobile homes. So I don't know what it was, but we'd like to know what y'all are trying to approve. On page 6.5, number 6 under M, this is what it reads. The manufactured home must be set on a concrete slab or runway, and such slab or runway must be of a size large enough to accommodate a manufactured home in such a fashion that the concrete will extend at least 1 inch around the walls of the manufactured home. I'm a realtor, guys. For you to get a manufactured home financed, you have to meet FHA. That's federal regulations and guidelines. And if they tell you you have to have a runner so many inches by so many inches, spaced so many inches apart and away from here, and they have guidelines we have to follow. And then UDC is going to come in and say, you have to have a 1 inch perimeter of concrete around your manufactured home. There would not be a manufactured home I would say in Caddo Parish and venture to say Louisiana, that meets that guideline. Where did that come from? Why did it come from? And why are we, UDC, whoever, making rules up that the federal government doesn't even require us to do? So we can pick this apart page by page, article by article, number by number. It is just jacked up. So we want to be here to voice our opinion. I'm sorry, I'm out of time. But there's just way too much wrong. Way too much wrong.
All right.
I have a comment on that.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm glad I make y'all laugh.
No, and it speaks to one of the things that you said about the mobile homes. I'm glad you brought that up, because when this was originally proposed in the original UDC, I spoke out against it because I'm friends with a few of the mobile home distributors, and they say the same thing. A mobile home is really hard to get financed in the first place. But here's the other aspect of that, and I'd like the staff to consider, is maybe you don't live in a mobile home, but there's a lot of people that do, and that's the best they can get at that point in their life for the money. But if you require a concrete pad for the entire mobile home, you're adding about, probably $5,000 or $6,000, maybe $10,000 to the cost of this mobile home, when they're barely able to be financed as it is. So you're talking about an ordinance that would stifle the mobile home sales significantly. And then so this becomes a snowball effect too. If someone has a mobile home in really poor condition, they don't replace it because they can't afford the mobile home and the $10,000 pad that it goes under and everything else. So, because when you remove that mobile home, then all of these stipulations are now required. So I think this is another instance where, because I remember specifically having this discussion last time and we removed it, and I'm not sure if something has come up that we're trying to put this back in, but this is not a good idea because...
I forgot exactly what the mobile home amendment was. I thought we were trying to allow them in place.
Well, the amendment that's up, currently the UDC does not address the replacement of non-conforming mobile homes. The amendment that's up it adds language which allows for the replacement of such structures as long as the replacement is newer or equal in greater size.
Yeah. That was your concern, if I remember, Mr. Ramirez.
Well, that was on that neighborhood, that neighborhood.
But I made sure that got in.
Yeah, but I'm thinking the interest of the citizens of Caddo Parish, is there something that is really hurting the greater public interest by not having a concrete pad under a mobile home? Is there, what is because sometimes there's a really good reason, we're just unaware, but what is the reasoning that that's so important to have that concrete pad? If they have the skirting, you can't see it anyway. So are they settling and warping, or is there because...
My question would be, what gives you more knowledge than federal guidelines?
Well,
which are pretty strict.
We're going to revisit that, Mr. Ramirez.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Well, no, and they have a certain set of guidelines, and they try to enforce. Now, and I will say real briefly that, and I'm a huge proponent of the government staying in its lane, but you have to look at the other side of it, is when you call down to the MPC office and say, my neighbor, we just built a home and we spent $300,000. My neighbor has 8 broken down school buses on the property line and we can't even see down the road. All we can see is directly in front of us. Please do something. Well, his response, if we took everything away, was, sorry, you didn't want any regulation where you are, so they could burn coal, roofing material. It's the Wild West. So there is a balance there, okay? And that's why our government officials are elected and they're held accountable to you guys. So but just please understand that there's a balance. It's not all or nothing, okay?
I totally agree.
So voice your concerns, get with your parish commissioners, tell them you want some of the restrictions lifted, but there has to be something in place where your neighbor can't take away your good, positive quality of life.
I agree.
Okay.
I don't want a pig farm next to my house.
Okay. So just please understand it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And it was,
Thank you.
was it Miss Tappy? Jane Tappy?
Jane Tappy.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right.
I'm the last one.
We're gonna let you go. Councilman Fuller, are you next? Did I go first? Councilwoman?
Fuller, 519 Kirby. I wanted to speak in favor of Amendment 13 and against Amendment 9. The whole point of 13 was to create consistency through policy on how we handle liquor stores in the neighborhood so that we don't end up back in that tit for tat, case by case basis when we're looking at something next to residential. There are going to be times when it still comes up, but if we can take that guesswork out of it, it just seems like it's a thing that we should do. I'm opposed to 9 though, because of what that might do when we're talking about mixed use, or just like that's a use that might actually be seen as adding value for people that want to walk for that activity. That's it. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions from Councilwoman?
Don't want to leave.
We are always happy to be here. We are happy to be here. So, thank you.
Good afternoon to y'all.
Good
God bless
afternoon.
each and every one of you. What I'm here is
Can you
what
start
I
with your
can
name if
have.
you don't mind?
Oh,
It's okay.
Robert Fuller, 5126 Albany Road.
All right, thank you.
What I'm here to ask is, what can I have and what can't I have? I've been out there since 1966 on Albany Road, before it was even paved all the way down to the end of the road. A couple of neighbors of mine and myself, we've had enough livestock out there to make a John Wayne movie. And when I moved out there, I thought I was moving in plumb Nelly, plumb out of the city, nearly in the country. And now it's grown up out there, and I've been out there before Northwood High School was out there. We used to ride horses out there where Northwood High School is now. Now you can't even walk your dog out there now. It's so congested and everything. And like talking about the trailer, my son came in the house one day, and I've got 3 acres out there. My son came out there and asked me if him and his wife could move a nice double wide out there on one of my lots. I said no, and they went and talked to Mama, and the next day I was cutting down trees and moving fences. And it took 13 loads of dirt to build a pad for that thing. Plus, I think I've got, they dug 12 or 18 inches deep, maybe 2 foot deep, a foot wide, 18 times, and filled that up with cement. And each pad on that trailer has where they put the cinder blocks is a pad, and that costs plenty of money. And like I said, what can I have and what can't I have? I've got 5 trailers, 2 side-by-sides, and 3 4-wheelers, I think. That's what my grandson and my son have. And they're in the back, behind my house. And they got a camper trailer back there. And I've got a boat in a carport in front of the house up there where my wife parks and I park, and extra things. I got a boat there. Do I have to have all that hidden behind the fence now, since I've been out there, so long? Is there a grandfather clause anywhere?
There's not a grandfather clause, sir.
As
They've
of
suspended
today,
the ordinance.
as of today, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Your trailers and
But we
are
used
not in violation.
we used to truck farm out there, and like I said, like Ms. Jane said about chickens and roosters. No, I've had my wife was scared about what I was going to bring home sometimes from the auction barn. But
Understood.
like I said, we like it out there and like to see it stay as it is, And I appreciate each and every one of y'all, and God bless you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fuller. All right. Thank you. Next in line. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I enjoy you going to have to speak up.
I know I'm going to try.
I can see you too now. Okay. But what I want some answers, because I've been out there since 1966.
Okay, can you start with your
want my
name? That would be great.
William Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
5617 Brandon Road, 71107.
All right, perfect.
Okay. And I've been out there since 1966, June of 1966. And I've had some good days and I've had some bad days. And the parish hadn't done too much for me, I'm going to tell you. I had to go to court, man sold property without a right-of-way. They come over to the end of the cul-de-sac and give him a right of passage over my property. Okay? Now, they sat down there for 10 or 15 years right by the owner, and they sold it again. Now we got a fella down there that's trying to run a used car lot. About 12 wrecked cars down there. I called zoning enforcement. They come out and I said, well, I don't see no violations he's made. He don't even have a right-of-way to his place. The man sold a right-of-way. So now what we going to do about that? That's what I need to know. Because if not, I'm going to have to file suit on him. I've already had one suit that I filed and stayed in court 2 years on it whenever they took on the man sold his right-of-way to the property he sold. Landlocked 40-something acres. Now, am I going to have 40 acres or 40 acres entering over the end of that cul-de-sac, which is supposed to be a dead end? You see, I'd like to have some questions answered. If some of you can answer some of them.
We don't know enough.
Now, I know I can't stop him from going over it because he has a court order to get over it. But it's a dirt road, and he has no access to his property, and he's trying to run a business and a car lot down there on 2 acres of ground. And he's been down there about 2 years now.
Running a business?
And I called enforcement and asked the enforcement to go down, and they went down there and they said they couldn't see no violations. Well, he's not supposed to have a bunch of cars down there. He's supposed to have a single family dwellings, what it's supposed to be. Now, he brought somebody from across the border with him, I'm afraid, because there's a whole bunch of them down there.
We will ask Mr. Jordan and his staff to go back out and
Well,
take a
I
look.
called the enforcement division. They sent a man out, and he went down there and walked around for a little bit. And this man buys these cars off an insurance company where they wrecked.
Yes.
Then he brings them down there and patches them up and sells them.
We'll be back out there.
But I want you to look into it.
Yes, be happy.
But I've been out there. Now, what I want to know another thing on the water, sewage, and everything. I got water, sewage, and gas and everything. Now, when the parish takes that over out there, what are we going to do? We're going to have to put in sewage line, gas line, and all that kind of stuff. Hook into sewage. I've got a septic tank I've been using for 63 years.
And like we're saying, nothing we're doing is changing.
I've got a lot of questions I'd like for y'all to answer.
Mr. Hall.
You're more than welcome to come to visit our office,
Yes.
and we'll answer all your questions.
Have you ever?
I see my time run out.
Thank you.
See, I've done talked too long, you see.
No, you've been just perfect amount of
anyhow,
time.
you know how I feel about it. But the parish hadn't done much for me, I'm telling you. I've got about 3 acres out there.
You need to make an appointment with your commissioner and go visit.
Yeah, well,
And
I cornered him up the other night.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're going to do. I might be here tomorrow.
That's a good idea. And also on the 4th floor is the MPC offices where our highly qualified staff, who knows much more than we do on our board. We're not trained in urban planning, but they are always available to sit with you and answer questions like that.
Okay.
And the enforcement issue as well.
All right, I thank you. Okay.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. All right, next.
Hello, my name is Kathy Hall. I'm at 6862 North Park Lane, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71107. No relation to Mr. Hall.
You said Hall. Okay, I was going to ask you if you were related. Okay.
My question is, on the previous case, the annexation that nobody was here to represent, if that does pass, will it push our 5-mile radius out further?
No.
How is that?
The Caddo Parish Commission, they're the ones who set that line.
Okay.
And so, just because the city annexes property, that doesn't automatically make that
Make
5
that-
miles congruent.
okay.
They set the line, I think it was back in the 70s, we're looking to verify when that was, but that line is where it is. So as property is annexed, that line stays until either the Parish Commission decides to move it 5 miles, within where the city limit line is, or increase it. They have that, what state enabling legislation says that it can be up to 5 miles.
Okay.
Well, let me just say, the potential jurisdiction does grow, and let me explain what that means. Up to 5 miles could be the planning limits.
Right.
But there has to be very specific ordinances passed in order for the zoning law to be laid down, and that's doesn't happen automatically. The jurisdictional potential grows automatically, but the law doesn't get laid down without a specific ordinance passed by the commission.
Okay. Can I ask for additional time?
Is that a concern that you have, that you do not want that line to go beyond the point that it is now?
Well, I'm already in the 5 mile radius, but I was just wondering for other people that are
Okay.
further out.
Okay.
But I'm already ahead lab with this UDC, so.
Okay.
Another question, and most of my time was used by you gentlemen.
You wanna
What about us that have property that say we want to fish in our pond, or say we want to squirrel hunt on our land? I mean, this is the sportsman's paradise. Does the UDC say what we can do as far as hunting and fishing and all that?
That is a
State laws.
much bigger deal.
State laws still apply? Okay. And also, what about burning? Because we all burn out there, because we all have our large,
Fire district controls burning.
so that's not going to be, no part of that either. Okay. And then I heard that there was a thing that said we could be told how many dogs we can have at our house.
So
That was a rumor
we're not
as
gonna
well.
come out counting dogs.
Okay, well, I didn't know. I didn't know if y'all were going to come in and tell us, how many bed linens we could have and towels and that sort of thing. But I do want to say that we aren't happy with this, as you can tell. We're not. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and you also, Mr. Bailey. And I haven't spoken with you prior, Mr. Jean, but I appreciate everything y'all are doing. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hall. Next, anyone else here to speak in regard to these proposed amendments? All right, welcome.
How you doing? My name's Bernie Pyro, live at 8895 Blanchard Latex Road, Mooringsport, Louisiana.
Okay, and you said Bernie what?
Pyro, P-I-R-O.
Thank you. Okay.
I see we're inside city limits of Blanchard, and like Greenwood is exempt from the boundaries on it. And I have a Mooringsport address, and I'd like to know why we're inside the 5 mile.
Question.
Is Morningsport an incorporated area with a town hall and police protection and so forth?
Yes, they do.
And you live in the city limits?
I don't live inside the city limits, but.
That's why.
Okay.
If you live inside the city limits of Morgansport,
it supersedes.
you will not be part of our limits.
So if you get your house annexed, you can do anything they'll let you do.
Okay. But a question I've got is I own about approximately 5 acres, and I live on the corner. I own the lot behind me, which is a corner lot, and I own the one beside it. There's nowhere I can go that I can put something that's not going to be visible from the road. I have to keep up the 5 acres. I have a tractor. I have a bush hog. I have a finish cutter. I have a box blade, and I have a rotary tiller. I have a seeder for seeding the property. I can't build a $30,000 or $40,000 structure to put all those pieces of equipment that goes to my tractor. That's why I moved. I built outside the city limits was so that I didn't have these restrictions. And here I am faced coming before y'all today with this very thing. When I have a tree that dies on my property, most of the time, I can handle it myself, and I cut it down, and I burn it, and I dispose of it without having to get permission from anybody to cut down my tree that's dead. And we chose a rural lifestyle. And, you know, Shreveport has got enough problems. I can take you right now all through city of Shreveport where there's burned down houses with furniture out in the front yard, cars that are jacked up on blocks, but yet the city of Shreveport wants to come and tell us how to live out there when they can't even keep up with what they got here. And I got a problem with that.
Do you know who your commissioner is, your parish commissioner?
Right now, it's Doug Dominic.
Okay, perfect. So that's your man.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
he's, you know, the city council and the commission are the lawmakers, and so it's not just Shreveport.
right. And that's the very commission that right down the road from me allowed property for them to move in used mobile homes, which devalued my property. And that's the very board, when the zoning sign went up, a neighbor saw it, came back home, and 3 hours later it was gone. And we all came before the Caddo Parish Commission, and they rubber stamped it.
I don't know what case that is, but
Yeah.
there's
And they
always
just
times when people want protection from the code, and then there's times when people want protection from
Well,
their
apparently our
neighbors.
Caddo
And
Parish
so-
Commission didn't want it because what they put in, you ought to come see these used mobile homes and what's sitting out there in front and behind them. And they're putting in more behind it.
Right, this is an example of a balance. How do you balance people's ownership rights versus their neighbors' rights? This is the whole point of the code, and why for 9 years, we have been struggling with this code. So,
Well, I don't see where the Caddo Parish Commission has helped, because none of these are falling within those code guidelines. None of them have the concrete below extending out 1 inch beyond, but yet they're there.
right, so,
Might have been
And-
grandfathered or outside the 5
right.
miles.
These are homes that have just got put in there.
Are they outside the 5 miles? of
No,
our jurisdiction?
no. They're closer than I am.
They're on Blanchard Fur Road, sir.
Blanchard Latex.
Blanchard Latex.
Yes, sir.
We'll
And they're
take a look.
putting in more behind those row of houses right there. But I have a problem with a sign going up that morning, and a neighbor, and he wouldn't come to the meeting because he was afraid that it was gonna make it worse on him. He owns 50 acres right there with a nice house and raises cattle. The sign went up on his way into town of Bossier going to Lowe's and saw it, and when he came back, the zoning sign was gone, so nobody knew about it until after the fact. And then we all band together when we find out what's happening, come down here to the Caddo Parish Commission, and they rubber stamped everything as if everything was fine. So,
The zoning administrator's gone, but do you have an address that you have an address of the property that you're talking about?
it's about the 8500 block of Blanchard Latex Road.
You got it.
There it is.
Thank you, we just got it reported.
Well,
All right,
I got one more question. Where do we get a copy of this 312-page document?
online, it's been.
Can I get someone to write it down?
I'll
You get it?
Yes.
Because it's been the best kept secret, and I think there's probably a lot of other stuff in there that's gonna be,
Please,
that we're gonna have to be reckoned with.
So not a secret.
So I think you're gonna see these smiling faces along with a lot of others that's gonna be continually coming to the parish meetings and this one.
Probably, but there's also, you'll be surprised at how many things you're gonna be glad about too. There's protections in there as well, and when they come up, you'll recognize those as well. So it's a balance.
When I bought out there was a house in the subdivision back behind us. Its standards were terrible, but you know what? We bought the property, we knew it was there, and we lived with it. So, I mean, I don't, the government overreach has got to stop somewhere. You know,
Thank you.
what about where it goes over the state line using the city, the Cross Lake as the boundary for it, because that extends past State Line Road. I'm 4 miles from Texas, and I'm being governed by this.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
So-
Is it
Pyro.
Pyro. I want to say Pyro. Pyro. All right. And who's next? Does anyone else want to speak in regard to these proposed amendments? All right. Seeing none, are we going to take, is there an action we're going to take today?
I don't think a lot of the things that were of concern are part of your amendments today, Madam Chair. But we're gonna listen and we're gonna reach out to these citizens.
Okay. Are we taking any action on these today?
Yes. You could either approve, deny, or defer, just like any other case.
Well,
but
I think-
Starting with tab number 14.
Do we have the option to amend and approve?
Yes, and you can actually remove sections that you don't want to consider at this time, if you wanted to do that.
Okay.
As you've done before.
Well, in regard, number 20 is already, the language already says that's going to be considered further, correct, about the trailers?
Right, that language would be
Right.
removed. You're recommending removal
So
of
that one's, so does each one of these need to be in the form of a motion, or is this just a discussion?
The way y'all done in the past is y'all, either done, approved everything or amended as
Okay.
necessary.
I'll make a motion, I'll make a motion to approve it with striking out the number 20 with the trailers and the boats, and also striking out the need for concrete under the mobile homes.
Yeah, the first thing we discussed was the requirement for the public meeting, or is that in the second set?
That's the amendment, or.
That's on 15.
That's 15.
Okay,
That's 15.
all right.
And I, just for discussion purposes, I would want to add 9 to that removal as well.
And you wouldn't want to strike through 20. What 20 is doing is
Right.
removing that language.
Right, 20 I think speaks in favor of what you're saying.
Yes.
This one's, if you read page 6. Or
20,
if you scroll down to page 6, it's striking out the language for further review. So it's not.
Yeah, 20's not up for, 20's not going on anyway. What they were just putting in writing that it was placed on hold. So regardless of what we do, the commission is going to address it at a later time.
Right.
so the strike through doesn't mean anything on this?
No, the strike through means that we have an agreement with the commission.
Yes, that means
we
it's
take
not
this
being
action.
enforced.
Right.
And 9 is the
I would agree with
amended bar article?
Yes, I would just agree with Councilwoman Fuller about that. But what I have seen before is the neighborhood pub exception, when you want to have those opportunities in a mixed-use development particularly, and you want to have pedestrian access to small venues like that. I think that's overbroad. That's my opinion.
Okay, so
But the retail sales packaged liquor, I would agree with that.
what's the number for the concrete under the mobile home? What number is
28.
that?
Not in there.
It's not in there.
It's not in this one, it's in 15?
No, it's not in there at all.
That's how it's written in the UDC as is. It's not up for any type of amendment. I think what the matter was saying is that we need to address that.
So what do you want to do with 9? What was that
I
you
would
said?
move to strike number 9 from the overall amendments. Otherwise, I would move for approval.
Amend the bar. Bars are not permitted within.
And
Okay.
can any of can anything be addressed without being in this draft because of the public notice? Can we go ahead and address the concrete under the mobile homes is what I'm
Yes.
asking.
This wouldn't be swept up in this
But we haven't had
vote,
time.
right? It's not included.
It could
Yeah,
be.
Could
Oh,
be.
oh,
Could
okay.
we bring that back before you next month?
Yeah, I think they wanted to look to see what the.
Yeah.
We want to
purpose
be
for
able
that was, right?
to,
Just do a little research.
Okay,
and
that's,
understand,
okay,
and bring it back before you next month.
okay.
Okay, well, board, what is your pleasure?
He
I
made a
made the
motion.
Well-
Second.
So I need you to repeat it, if you would, please.
Strike 9
Okay,
and don't require trailers and boats and everything else to be in a shed. They can do what they want to do on hold with the current commission, parish commission.
that makes sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the amendment says that.
the amendment actually says that, so you
Yes.
would just approve what's recommended except for number
Number
9.
9,
I
okay.
moved to do that.
All right, so I have a motion
Say I
to,
moved it.
Well, I second his movement to do that.
I have a motion to approve item number 19451C
Yes.
with the exception of the 9th, of number 9 regarding neighborhood bars.
Before the vote. So the audience understand, the realtor lady, I can't remember her last name, the concrete under the mobile homes will be brought back at the next meeting.
May I say something about that?
Not at this point.
May I say something about
Sorry, sorry,
You can talk to him.
yes.
All right, vote.
Okay,
We
so how
voted?
much, you have a second?
Yep, we already had a second from
Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Joseph.
A motion by Mr. Coleman, a second by Mr. Joseph. Call for the vote.
You got it. You voted. Did it light up? Did it put a circle around it? There you go.
All right, so those
I started to get delirious.
amendments as discussed and amended have been approved. So now, do we need to
Which one?
address,
Neighborhood participation plan.
yes, hang on, the 19459C. Does anyone, board, what is your pleasure on those amendments?
I make a motion that we approve with the exception of striking the neighborhood participation and making it a requirement and just a suggestion from staff, a recommendation from staff when an applicant submits an application.
All right, so motion by Mr. Remedies to revise,
Approve with.
approve with this revision.
Yes.
That this process be
A recommendation only.
encouraged, though not required.
Correct.
And that's seconded by Ms. Smith. That makes sense? All right.
All right.
Call for the vote. All right. And that amendment with that revision has been approved. Now, case number 19459C and 19325P.
That's what you just voted on.
Is that, we just passed on that? 25.
We're going to old business.
Right, well, we voted on 451 and 19.
That was the one as amended.
Right. Okay. Now, all business committee chairs, does our nominating committee have anything to report for the nominations of next year's executive slate? Hello? Oh, Mr. Elberson, I believe you were going to present our slate, our proposed slate.
I'm not prepared to do that right now. I don't have that in front of me.
Oh.
So, I apologize.
Well.
Does anyone else have the
Yeah,
information?
we had our meeting with you by phone,
That's right.
but you just probably didn't write it down, so,
Hold on one second.
okay.
I have to pull
I mean,
that
I can do
information
it.
up.
Think.
No, I think it has,
Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Andrews.
We continue to.
Okay.
I don't have the slate. What's the slate?
I think we're doing like we traditionally do, I'll say it.
Yeah.
It matters.
I think we let me think about this. Oh, yes.
We're not doing it traditionally.
As we traditionally did, we slated
Windsor Andrews to be chair. Myself is
Vice
Curtis.
chair.
Curtis.
I think you were.
Okay, me as vice chair, and Curtis Joseph as secretary.
So the slate's been presented?
That's the proposed.
That was the
slate.
proposed
The-
slate.
The nominating committee, which was composed of you four, met, and that is the slate that they were going to present today for approval or not.
Yeah, so do I need to restate that?
Sure.
Okay. The nominating committee proposed the slate of officers for next year, and it would be Windsor Andrews as chair, Leah Desmarteau as vice chair, and Curtis Joseph as secretary.
Yes, secretary,
Okay.
and then I would stay on as past chair, which is full slate.
Okay.
Correct. There you go.
And do we need to have a motion to approve that slate?
I think we do.
You're making the motion.
We're making the motion, we vote on it,
Yeah.
or substitute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to form that in a motion, and could I get a second?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, a second by
Yeah,
Mr.
second,
Ramirez?
now we vote.
All right, so is everybody clear on who the proposed slate would be?
And I'm not
All
the
right.
chair.
I'm sorry, we're just. All right.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Congratulations, time to go.
This is my last
you.
meeting as chair.
Apologize,
Okay.
they caught me off guard.
Any other chair reports? Any other committee reports?
Is it a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Well, no, we haven't, I'm still on committee chairs. Any new business, research is still listed there, and then the director's report.
Real quickly, I know
Okay.
you're ready to go. First of all, just like to thank these citizens for taking the
Yes.
time out to come and let us hear some of the concerns that they have. We will delve much more into their concerns as the days go forward in 2020 and come up with some solutions to those problems. I'd like to remind everybody we're looking into possibly beginning in the January meeting of the MPC meetings being streamed live. That just will help for those persons that cannot make the meetings can look at you live and see everything that's going on and stay abreast of the developments with the MPC. The Employee Appreciation Social is December 18th from 11 to 1 at the Country Tavern. Hopefully, all of the board members will come and show their appreciation for the employees that work for the MPC. And we're tentatively scheduling a retreat for the MPC board for January 10th, 2020. In this retreat, we are going to delve deeply into annexation, bring in some resource persons to talk about some of the things that you might want to start looking at as we consider annexation.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. All right, any type of motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All right, meeting's adjourned.
This Friday.
Thank Nancy for being
It's all good. We can talk about it in January when we welcome him.